From Washington, this is VOA News. UN humanitarian chief calls for more international action to help civilians in Syria's civil war. Muslims threatened by Christian and animist militias in the Central African Republic. I'm Michael Lippin reporting from Washington. The UN humanitarian chief has urged the Security Council to take immediate action to help Syrians suffering from a lack of critically needed aid in besieged communities. From the United Nations, VOA's Margaret Bashir has more.
In October, the 15-nation council answered repeated calls from Valerie Amos for international support with a statement demanding unimpeded access for aid workers. But after 4 months of obstacles, the UN humanitarian chief said the situation is significantly worse, not better.
There's no amount of words that can adequately describe the horrific reality facing civilians in Syria today.
She noted that while a brief pause in hostilities negotiated between the two sides in the old city of Homs has helped to evacuate 1,400 civilians since Friday, there are still 250,000 more in other besieged communities and 3 million in hard-to-reach areas who are without assistance. Amos noted that 15 aid workers have been killed in Syria since October. Margaret Bashir, VOA News, the United Nations.
An international aid group says militiamen in the Central African Republic are threatening violence against about 1,000 vulnerable civilians, mostly Muslims. Doctors Without Borders says the threat comes from Christian and animist militias known as Anti-Balaka, who recently seized control of the western town of Karno. It says the militiamen have been searching for Muslim civilians who are either in hiding or who have taken refuge at protected sites. Human rights groups have warned that anti-Balaka groups are attempting to chase Muslims out of their communities in a form of ethnic cleansing. Well, Team China has won 2 gold medals in speed skating at the Sochi Winter Olympics. In Thursday's action, Chinese speed skater Li Jianru won the women's 500-meter race, while China's Zhang Hong took the top spot in the women's 1,000-meter speed skating event. In skiing, American freestylers dominated the first-ever men's Olympic slopestyle competition, sweeping the top 3 spots. Well, the Olympic luge athletes wrapped up their competition in Sochi on Thursday night with the inaugural team relay event. VOA's Park Brewer was at the Sankey Sliding Center in the mountains above Sochi and has this report.
Favorite Germany captured the first ever Olympic gold medal in luge team relay, with the silver going to host Russia and Latvia getting the bronze. The Germans have won this event at the last 10 World Championships. It's one of the more intriguing new events that has been popular on the World Cup circuit this season. Finishes can be unpredictable because of possible false starts and crashes. The team relay features each of the luge disciplines racing in this order: women's singles, men's singles, and then doubles. German doubles brakeman Tobias Arlt said through a translator that he and his teammates are close friends, and this was a special win.
We're so happy. We've made it. We've made history in sports, and we've won a medal.
Park Brewer, VOA News at the Sochi Olympics.
Well, millions of people in the eastern United States are digging out of a major snow and ice storm that also left 1 million more in the dark in the south. The storm hit the southeast on Wednesday and moved up the Atlantic coast on Thursday into New England. More than 30 centimeters of snow fell on parts of the mid-Atlantic, closing down the federal government here in Washington and also closing schools and grounding thousands of flights. In the normally mild south, ice brought down trees and power lines. The storm also is blamed for at least 12 deaths. And a Tibetan man has set himself on fire near a monastery in western China's Sichuan province. Sources tell VOA's Tibetan service that Thursday's self-immolation at the Kirti Monastery was an apparent protest against Chinese rule in Tibetan regions of the country. It is the second self-immolation by a Tibetan this year. Since 2009, more than 120 Tibetans have set themselves on fire, often fatally, to demand that China allow the return of exiled Tibetan leader the Dalai Lama and respect Tibetan freedoms. You can find more on those stories by visiting our website at voanews.com. I'm Michael Lippin, reporting from Washington.
happening over there.
Bring in, as promised, Academy Award-winning documentary filmmaker Michael Moore. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith.
There's been a spike in the desire to own guns in Connecticut. Statewide, over 90,000 guns have been authorized for sale. You know how I feel about it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Good evening, my fellow Americans, my fellow patriots. You are listening to the Midnight Patriot. I am your host, Jeff Norton. We are live. It is Thursday, February 13th, 2014. I hope you guys are staying warm. Hope you got yourselves dug out. I don't know about you, but I am enjoying this weather. But you know what? I kind of stay in. I don't go out in it. I enjoy it, though. I think it's kind of cool, the fact that Lake Michigan is actually going to freeze over, is what the experts are saying. I don't know. You know what they say about experts. They are calling on it. They are definitely calling on it. I know that our fellow listeners out there on the East Coast are getting hammered with a pretty significant snowstorm. You know, stay inside. You know, listen right here, Patriot FB. Grab a book, watch the Olympics. Turn the volume down. Put on Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd as you're watching. It's kind of interesting. That's what we were doing. I was actually kind of in a little bit of rush. I was upstairs watching the Olympics. I was rooting for the Russian skater Pachenko. And I just want to say that it was disappointing, to say the least, that he hurt himself during warm-ups, and we didn't get to see his exit from pro skating and everything. But you know, he needs to hold his head up. I mean, 4 Olympics, 31 years of age. And, you know, he did what he had to do. You know, he skated for his country, he skated for his team. They won the gold medal again in the team competition. And, you know, that's what it's all about. You know, he was looking out for his team, not him as an individual, but him as a team. And that's the part that I took away from that. But it was amazing. I was watching sledding, or sliding as they call it. That's insane. That's incredible. And the young men and women who are doing the freestyle skiing, that's crazy. I don't understand their wardrobe. Don't understand the baggy pants thing. But hey, I mean, they're at the Olympics. I'm not. I'm watching and everything. So tonight is actually going to be kind of a free form. We're going to be taking your calls. If you'd like to join in the conversation, give us a call at 1-800-580-4870. That's 1-800-580-4870. Join us at patriotfb.com. That is www.patriotfb.com. In the chat room, we'll pop over there throughout the evening, pick up chats, communicate with you during breaks and everything. But before we get too long in the tooth tonight, we need to take care of a little bit of business here. And it's amazing. You'd think I'd have this stuff all queued up, ready to go. But no, like I said, I was upstairs watching skating. Yeah, that's right, men's figure skating. It's cool. Pretty impressive.
The following words were spoken by the late Red Skelton on his television program as he related the story of his teacher, Mr. Laswell, who felt his students had come to think of the Pledge of Allegiance as merely something to recite in class each day. Now, more than ever, listen to the meaning of these words. I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester, and it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. May I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one. Pledge, dedicate all my worldly goods to give without self-pity. Allegiance, my love and my devotion. To the flag, our standard, Old Glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts, freedom is everybody's job. United, that means that we've all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states, 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the Republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people, and it's from the people to the leaders, and not from the leaders to the people. For which it stands one nation. One nation meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life without threats, fear, or some sort of retaliation, and justice, the principle or quality of dealing fairly with others, for all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance. Under God. Now, wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that's a prayer, and that it would be eliminated from schools too? God bless America.
Charlie Daniels, the impeccable Charlie Daniels, reciting a monologue that Red Skelton gave on his show in 1964. 1964. I have to drum that. That's one of my favorite. That one and John Wayne, even Red Skelton. Those are my favorite ones. Lee Greenwood. Push the words together. So you all know what's coming up next. Please rise, raise your right hand, and repeat after me. I, Jeffrey W. Norton, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the organic Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office in which I am about to enter. So help me God. So help me God. Take that oath. I know some of you guys are out there listening, and some of you do it in your head, some of you do it vocally, out loud. But listen to those words. Those words. For you guys in the military, you guys obviously know what those words mean. You've said them. Maybe you don't. maybe you don't. But one of the things that we did change, obviously, is the organic Constitution. So just the Constitution of the United States. And the reason why we throw the organic Constitution is because, part of this journey, part of these conversations, these shows that we do, they're conversations. They're opportunities for us to learn, to grow, to voice our opinions. And if you have an opinion, join us. 1-800-580-4870. That's 1-800-580-4870. I'd love to hear from you. Think of it as a conversation around the dinner table with close friends, good friends. Even amongst ourselves and within our own groups, we sometimes can get it wrong. As I was so kindly corrected last week by Joe out there at Patriot FB, as we were talking about the Second Amendment and felons and their loss of their privileges to own firearms after being convicted as a felon, and I misspoke. I'm not perfect. I misspoke. Said that the Constitution says you can't, and Joe corrected me and said, no, the Constitution doesn't say that. And then yesterday, if you were listening to yesterday's show, we kind of reaffirmed that. Holder saying, well, regardless of what the state laws are, the federal government's not going to go by them when it comes to gay marriages. Forget about your state laws. And then on top of that, he actually said that regardless of your state law, felons should have the right to vote. That's right. But yet he fell short of the Second Amendment. We talked about that. We spent a good 30 minutes talking about that on yesterday's show. I'm not going to rehash it. You can go back and listen to it. But I think I want to bring it up for the purpose of this conversation, is the fact that our U.S. Constitution has been corrupted. And let me tell you, why we say we pledge our allegiance to the organic Constitution of the United States. And the reason being is that we've been hoodwinked. See, all these guys are talking about Article 5 and all this. They want to do the Constitution. See, this is the thing that scares me. Congress can get together and they can amend the Constitution, which, obviously they've done in the past, right, with prohibition and the repeal of and all of those things. But in 1868, they added the Reconstruction Amendments. And inside the Reconstruction Amendment, as it's classically known as, is the 14th Amendment. And inside the 14th Amendment, they made us subject. Now listen to these words, and we got to stress these, because we're not going to give up this argument, because you need to be aware of the manipulation of the U.S. Constitution and how, everybody says, well, it's illegal under the Constitution. Well, guess what? It's not. The government can do whatever. We're subject. And let me tell you why. Because Section 1, all persons born or naturalized in the United States. That means everybody is born or naturalized. Anybody that's an American citizen. And subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. Now, a layman reading that would say, well, that has something to do with your naturalization clause, right? No. Subject of the jurisdiction thereof. That means anybody in the United States and anybody that's subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, which means anybody that's naturally born or naturalized in the United States, is now subject to the jurisdiction thereof. And if you go back and you trace it even further, and you look up in Black Law's dictionary, the de facto dictionary of law terms, you will find that the anti-freedom statement, when they talk about freedom, and of course you have the negative of freedom, they talk about anybody who is subject to something is no longer free. That's how it works. And it's clearly defined. So that's why we talk about the organic Constitution, because the Constitution that was amended in 1868 was the point in which the American free man and woman became a subject to the crown. And the crown in this case, of course, is to the government. And we're seeing more and more of that. So we're going to take a small break. When we get back, we got a caller. Caller, stay with us. We'll take about a 3-4 minute break. We'll get to the calls, talk about things in the news. I want to talk a little bit more about the Olympics, talk about the weather. Oh, woe is me. Blizzardella 2014. But you're listening to the Midnight Patriot Radio Show. Hang tight.
Advertise to thousands of fellow patriots with Patriot FB Radio. Email advertise@patriotfb.com for more details. For all your prepping needs, visit our friends at mountainviewoffgridliving.com or call 208-615-6331. 208-615-6331. Get involved. Get involved. Support Stone Anthony for President. www.stoneanthony2016.com. Put a real American in the White House.
ZZ Top. Jesus left Chicago, and he's bound for New Orleans. New Orleans. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot Radio Show and Podcast. I am your host. That was a deep sigh because that was some really good coffee. I just drank some good coffee. It was very refreshing and stuff. So, but before we get too crazy into the night and stuff, I noticed that we have a caller. So, like always, we're going to go right to you. Caller, give us your first name and where are you calling from, my friend?
Hey, Jeff, it's Matt from Lodi,
Hey,
California.
Matt from Lodi. How are you?
Oh, I'm vertical, and I'm on the right side of the grass.
There you go. Yep.
I had some good news to report today. I've been watching my local news out here in California.
Oh, let's hear it.
And I think there's some great news for the country to rejuvenate some of their trust, maybe, possibly, in the Supreme Courts. California passed a law on your concealed weapons permit here not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
That, of course, it's county-based, city-based, and you had an obligation to show a good moral compass,
mm-hmm,
and a means of necessity for obtaining the permit.
Sure.
Before they would issue it to you. This was the legal statute you had to go through. You had to show good cause.
Sure.
And good moral background.
Sure, which is kind of all subjective. You know?
Right. It's no legal term. It's all relative.
Yeah, it's all, yep.
The Supreme Court shot down that law today.
Outstanding.
I loved it.
Outstanding. So what does that mean for now, you know, what does that mean for the great state of California?
Well, essentially they can't issue you, or they can't deny you a concealed weapons permit based on opinion.
So what, I mean, does it go back to the lower courts? I mean, because like, you know, one of the things that they had to conceal carry with the state of Illinois, is the fact that then they kicked it back to the states and gave them X amount of days in which they had to remedy the issue. Is that the same with California? Do they have so many days in which now they have to remedy it, or is it basically they can't deny?
Well, we have so many people out here in California that just have nothing better to do. So they're pretty good about getting their opinion through to the Capitol.
Sure.
And I'm pretty sure they got through to the Capitol before the law actually really took effect.
Oh.
So it essentially nullified the law that they had voted into law but hadn't become law yet.
Gotcha.
But I just thought it was, you know, really awesome that the Supreme Court of California stepped in and went, wait a minute, no, that's not right.
Oh, so this was not a Supreme Court of the United States. This is a Supreme Court within the state of California.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
well, I mean,
all state level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good thing. You know, at least, you know, they're recognizing the only issue that I see with that, obviously, is that until the Supreme Court actually makes a ruling on it and it goes through appeals, I don't think you're going to see. And I don't want to be, you know, negative Nanny here, but I mean, because we went through this in the state of Illinois,
is that California can't impose an opinion into law at this point
Yeah.
for carrying a concealed weapons.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so what is the process in the state of California to get a concealed weapons?
Oh, it's ridiculous. First of all, when you can't go to a hardware store. You go to a specified gun dealer, an FFL, and you fill out the application to apply to get a gun.
Okay.
So you fill out this application, and you pay your money, and then they run the application, and then they give you this card that tells you that, yes, you can go ahead and purchase a gun or apply to purchase a gun.
Sure.
Then you can go in, I think it's like 5 or 6 days later, and then you can start the buying process, which means you say, I want that one. You fill out the paperwork again. Then you have a 15-day waiting period once you've already paid for the weapon before you can take possession of the weapon.
Sure. And is that for long guns, handguns? They're all the same?
Long guns and handguns are now both a 15-day waiting period.
Okay.
They want you to be able to cool down.
Gotcha.
Now
because
in South
the
Carolina,
gang bangers and the criminals and stuff, they're gonna sit back and drink some lattes and go to the art museum and go to the library, and they're gonna wait. They're not gonna rob you. They're not gonna mug you.
They got 15 days to figure it out if they want to or not.
I got you.
Now in South Carolina, you go to the hardware store where you pick up any kind of hardware supplies. Go to the back counter, tell them you want that one.
Sure.
You fill out your paperwork. You give them your proper identification. They ask you to hold on for a moment. They make a phone call to the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division.
Yes.
Top dog law enforcement division in the state.
Yep.
They run your information right there on the phone. They tell the guy at the counter he's good to go.
Yeah.
They come up to the counter and they say, would you like some ammunition with that?
Yeah. Well, in the state of Wisconsin, if to purchase a firearm, obviously, if it's a long gun, we call the NICS, which is the FBI background check, and that's instant. On a handgun, we call the state, and there's a two day wait period for the handguns. But it's the same. It's actually the same organization that does your background check. Now, in the state of Wisconsin, if you want to do a concealed carry, they will get you. Now, when they first started, they were so backlogged they couldn't get to all of the permits. It was just crazy. But now that this calmed down, they're back to 21 days. So if you send in your payment and your paperwork, you will get your concealed carry license in the mail within 21 days.
That's correct, and I believe that's federal standard.
Yeah, I mean it's typical. What kind of slows that down is, they were just so backlogged, but now they're fine. So now in the state of California, your concealed carry, what is the process to get a concealed carry license?
That's what I was about to wrap back to. So now you went through all the red tape to actually purchase your firearm. So you purchased your firearm. Then you apply for the CWP, or out here it's CCP, concealed carry permit. And then you go to a registered class, and it's, I believe, 16 hours of class time.
Sure.
And qualifying on the range. And you pay your money for that.
Gotcha.
Then you get qualified. Then, here in the city of Lodi, you cannot go to a county sheriff. You have to go to the city police department.
Okay.
Then you have to go to the police department, pay your money there. You get fingerprinted. Then you have to go through a psychological evaluation.
Huh? What?
Yeah.
So, all right. Now, wait a minute. Who gives you? So you have to actually go see like a mental health profession?
Yes.
Which, by the way, they have out of all the professional fields, they probably have one of the highest incidences of suicide.
And it has to be one that the police chief is comfortable with.
Oh, my goodness.
And they must deem that you are sane and capable of carrying that firearm and making rational decisions.
So
then it all depends on if the chief likes you as to whether or not he rubber stamps your permit or not.
Gotcha. If you're buddies, I know. That's how it works in Chicago as well.
But if you fail your psychological evaluation, you do not get your permit.
And the problem is because you fail, and it is a professional evaluation, right? That goes on your book, and then if you ever go out and fill out a 4473, they ask you if you're a mental defect, and so now you have.
What the hell is a 4473?
Well, 4473 is a federal form that needs to be filled out when you buy a long gun. That's the federal. You guys in California do your own thing, but a 4473 is the federal form that gets filled out. And on the 4473, there's a specific question that asks you about mental defect. And the problem is, now that you went to a psychiatrist, right, and he denied you for whatever reason for a gun, that's now on your record. This is, I guess, now what is the process in California if I come from an out of state? Do I have to register my guns with the state or?
Legally, okay, if you have bought your gun of legal manners in another state, which all of my weapons have been purchased by legal manner.
Sure.
I have never obtained one on the down low.
Yeah.
Nothing like that.
I got you.
I've always purchased them at the hardware store.
Yeah.
When you are legally allowed to drive that weapon across California borders,
sure,
to your point of destination, they request, and they really, 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 really want you to register that firearm once you establish a residence here in California. They want to know you have it. And I imagine there's a fee that goes along with that.
I'm sure they got to make money. Yeah.
But
they got to pay for all the Hollywood.
Right. If it's your gun, you can't bring a gun over the border that belongs to a friend of yours.
Yeah.
That's a big no-no.
Yeah.
But if it's yours and yours legally, you can bring it in.
Gotcha.
Now, California shares absolutely no reciprocity, and I want all your listeners across the nation to understand this. When it comes to a concealed weapons permit, California shares absolutely no reciprocity with anyone in the state.
Which is, I'm sorry. That's I know you live there and it's your state and everything, but that's why I will never step foot in the state of California. I've been invited on many occasions.
But if you have a CWP in any other state in the nation and you do not have one here and you carry concealed here, it is a felony.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just it's crazy. Like I said, I've shipped firearms there, and you have to get you got to get permission before you can even ship the firearm to a registered federal dealer, and then once you get permission from the Secretary of State, then it's Commerce or whatever, then you can ship it and do all the paperwork and stuff. And it's just not worth it. And talk about California, they're trying to enforce this micro stamping. And that's where, Smith & Wesson and all of the gun manufacturers are refusing to do that because and it is a safety issue. I mean, forget the practicality. Forget the practicality. The fact of the matter is anybody that has a firearm knows that you can switch a firing pin out. You go to Brownells or Midway or any one of those sites, you can get a firing pin for any firearm out there, and you could switch the firing pin out. So you don't think the criminals don't know how to do that, number one. And then number two, the shape and the diameter and all of that of the firing pin actually, believe it or not, does serve a purpose, has a functionality. And when you change the shapes, you actually are possibly introducing failure into the gun. You're actually making the firearm unsafe.
And if I'm not mistaken, California is the only state right now that has that legislation.
Yeah. California is the only one, and it's just another way of basically getting rid of the guns. I mean, they won't come out because they saw what happened in Colorado, they saw what happened in Virginia, they saw what happened in a lot of the states where they had the recall elections, even here in Wisconsin, when they had the recall elections on these Second Amendment, anti-Second Amendment politicians. And so they said, well, what we're going to do, and so we're not making a hot potato for these politicians. What we'll do is we'll start passing incredible hurdles for these manufacturers to overcome. Don't think for a minute. You think that the politicians in California are upset that Smith & Wesson's not going to sell guns anymore? No.
Actually,
to them it's a victory.
For the tax dollars, they are a little bit upset.
They don't care.
But they've been cutting their own throats for a long time.
Yeah, they don't. Look, they don't. They don't care. They really don't care. I mean, they don't. I mean, the reality of it is that because it is so wrong on many fronts, but the main front that is most appalling on is the fact that it's Second Amendment. So they're going to carve and they're going to pick and choose what laws they want to follow. I mean, this is, the government's shown us time and time again, this is not news, and they're just going to manipulate the system in which it comes out to their advantage. And so they don't care.
I know that we're not great friends of Great Britain. I know we declared our independence of Great Britain, but even in modern day, we have a lot to learn from them.
Mm-hmm.
In every CWP class and every concealed carry class, at least in the South, part of your curriculum is the video of the de-armament of Great Britain.
Yeah.
How it happened, the time frame it happened, and why it happened, and what you need to do as United States citizens to prevent it from happening.
Yeah.
And people don't understand. They think that Great Britain has never had guns. They think it's been 100 years. And you need to look back. It's really only been about 50.
Yeah, that hunting was a culture, and it still is for the aristocrats and the rich and everything. Look, it's all about protecting the government from society. Let's no longer dance around the bush here. Everybody talks about Second Amendment.
I'm sorry to talk over you, Jeff, but people need to look at the system that Great Britain used, and they finally achieved it by the late 60s.
Yeah.
That's not very long ago.
Yeah.
And the same system they used to achieve their goal is what's being used here.
Oh, absolutely.
So you don't really need this gun.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, you look at what goes on in Europe, and I've always said, of recent history and stuff, watch what's going on in Europe, and that's usually what's going to happen here within 4 to 5 years in the United States, and it's accelerated. But you're absolutely correct in the fact that the way that they are implementing the gun ban here in the United States, or trying to implement the gun ban here in the United States, is the same way that they did it in the UK. And that's why I'm telling you, that's why Pierce Morgan is such against the Second Amendment and for the gun. I actually think that he's kind of a plant. He's kind of put over here as far as the media to help spin the media in such a way. But they're learning. I mean, what's incredible is the amount of pressure that's being placed on our Second Amendment rights. And yes, they are bending. We are bent. They are getting, they are getting bent and they are getting strained, but they are not breaking. And of all things, they are, they're actually getting stronger. The more the government is pushing on them, the stronger our the stronger people are standing up for their Second Amendment rights. Now the problem is the government's realized that. So what are they doing? What are they doing? Well, they're shutting down. They're shutting down the lead factories. The last lead mine at Doe Run, they're shutting that down.
I didn't even know we had any left.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We have Doe Run there has produces about 80% of the lead for the United States.
Yes, but see, I'm a mechanic, and I worked with lead quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you know what? I actually had caught on to the trend about 12 years ago. About 12 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, give or take a year, China had bought up the world's lead supply at that point in time.
No, they did, but that's why,
because of how difficult things were to get at that point in time.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I didn't even know we had any production left.
Oh yeah, yeah. Doe Run, if you look at it, it's one of the largest ones, but they're effectively shut down. So all the lead that we're going to be receiving is lead that comes from overseas, which of course there's going to be tariffs and bans on it and all sorts of things. They're even talking about that you can't bring bullets in to the country. They can't be imported. So there's a lot of rules that they're going to start implementing now that they're going to dry their lead market up. And, it's just and that's the way they're doing it. They're doing the things like what California's doing. They're doing the getting rid of the lead supply. They're purchasing up large quantities of ammunition themselves. There's so many ways that they're manipulating the market. One of the other ways too is your insurances are increasing. They are talking about if they enter into the treaty with the United Nations, this is something that we're watching very closely, is that you can actually be prosecuted as a manufacturer or as a retail seller if you sell a firearm that's used in a crime in a foreign country. In other words, that foreign country, say AR-15 is illegal in that country, and a criminal uses an AR to commit a crime, that country can then petition the United Nations and Interpol, and you as the manufacturer, you as the dealer who sold that firearm, can actually be prosecuted under that country's laws. So as an American citizen, you can be prosecuted, and you don't even have to leave the country. Interpol will come and snatch you up and extradite you or take you home, take you back to whatever country, so you can face charges for as a gun dealer or whatever. You got to be very careful. I mean,
to kind of flip flop topics on you.
Sure.
Of course, back to the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
And I think you and I had talked before about how I kind of thought that we had really put ourselves in a pickle with the wording on that amendment. Mm-hmm. I did some more reading and I did some more thinking.
Sure.
And I put myself in that time frame. That was during, Restoration, Reconstruction.
Yep.
The wording of that law, if you put it into the time frame, if you put it in context, and let's be honest here, I mean, I can be a little bit objective. That wording was put in there to make sure that Southern boys didn't do that crap again.
Oh, I don't.
I mean, and that's all it really was to make sure that, okay, we don't want to do this again. We don't want these boys to come after us again.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that, because at that point in time, during that time frame, that's all it was.
Yeah.
It was Northern and Confederate, and how do we make sure Confederate does not come back at us again?
Yeah.
How do we end this war finally?
Yeah, but for whatever, I mean, one of the things, I know you're working there today, but you need to listen to Resurrect the Republic here on Patriot FB from 10. A good friend Thomas does an hour-long show, and this is all they talk about is the 14th and 18th Amendment and different amendments. And these guys are legal scholars, and they bring in legal scholars, and they talk about it. And you're absolutely correct, Neil. The intention of the law. All right, so let's back this up. All right, so the Patriot Act. The intention of the Patriot Act, right, was to protect us from guys in riding camels in the desert of Afghanistan, and basically. I mean, but look how that's morphed. Look how it's been molested, and how it's gotten to the point that it is today. I know what you're saying. The intent of the law was X, and maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I don't know if the King of England or the New World Order had their hand in it. There is some secondary evidence that states to the fact that there were other hands, and that's a question for Thomas and his show. He can go in a little bit more detail. I'm still learning about that, but regardless of that, let's just back it all back out. The reality of it is those words are there, and it's because those words are there that our government, see, the government is going to let you just march along believing what you want to believe. And the problem is that when the 14th Amendment and those words get applied to you is when you are physically under the jurisdiction of the government. That's when they get applied, and at that point, it's too late. You're already you're already hat in hand. They already got you. And
yes,
so
I'm
that's
completely with your end result there.
Yeah.
My only intention in kind, and I do tend to play both sides of the fence.
Sure.
My only intention of playing both sides of the fence sometimes is just to let people understand and open those synapses, open those brain cells
absolutely
a little bit, and say, if you put everything in context, the law itself is not wrong. It is only the perversion of that law that is wrong.
Yeah. Well,
the wording of the 14th Amendment, I don't think necessarily was intended to be wrong or condemning or damning.
But
in a sense.
Yeah, but those words, hold on. But those words, those specific words, subject thereof, you're thinking, and this is where my eyes had to be opened up. You're thinking of natural human conversation, you and I talking, and to us, subject thereof means exactly what you just spelled out, exactly what you just said. To the layman, the person just reading it, that's exactly the way we would interpret it. The problem is this: when you get into the legal system, those words take on a whole different meaning. They have a whole different meaning than the problem is that, and when our legal system and when the Constitution was written and they afforded you a trial by your peers and all of that stuff, what the purpose of that concept, trial by your peers, was the fact that your peers would be able to disseminate natural language and legal language, and kind of say, well, wait a minute, if I was in that same situation, I probably would have done the same thing. And that's the whole purpose of trial by your peers. Because they knew that not everybody was going to, understand the intent of the law or the legal, words in the legal system, words have meaning. And you'll learn that when you're in front of the legal system. So our framers of the Constitution were smart enough to say, well, look, when it goes to, where we're going to take someone's freedom away, we're going to let his peers rule on that, because his peers might say, well, in that circumstance, I would have done this or would have done that. It puts a more natural speech or a more natural language into the interpretation of the law. The problem is this: if you go to any court in the land in the United States now, the judges are instructing the juries to disregard the naturality of the human language. They're telling them, stay with the law, stay with the law, stay with the law, and they're taking away the naturality, our framers were so brilliant in giving two sides to every argument and having the opportunity on both sides, the way the government was structured. And it's been so manipulated and so molested now that you don't, the how do I say this? What our forefathers intended and what we have now is completely different. But I do agree with you. And, when you read that, you understand the time. You look at the time and you look at when it was written. I can see that, but it has been, like I said, manipulated, and just maligned to the point now to where basically the government, we are subjects, and the government will invoke that. We are subjects to the government. We are subjects to the corporation of the United States, and a good example of that is right now, our government, our congressmen, our legislatures are now debating on if the government has the right to blow an American citizen up without trial or jury.
Actually, by the Constitution, yes, they do.
Well, they do under the War Powers Act, but we're not under war.
Right.
Who declared the war? Okay, but we've been under war since Civil War, and that's the argument. But they won't come out and say that. We've been under, but you have a top military officer who's sworn testimony sitting there, and he said that he would like to assassinate Snowden, American citizen, without due process. Yeah. You have American citizens under the Patriot Act that are being snatched up as we speak and are being put in prison cells, and you have and they don't have a right to judge, jury, trial, or anything.
Now, not that I'm in support of any of this, but I do have to see both sides.
I got you.
And I am a big supporter in the things that I was taught when I was in school. And, I was taught there are certain things that the U.S. government can come and get you and hold you without charges indefinitely.
No.
For the rest of your life.
No.
That's actually what I was taught in school.
I know, and it's wrong because the U.S. Constitution. You have a right to a speedy trial. You have a right to face your accusers, and you have a right to jury by trial. You as an American citizen under the United States Constitution, you have those. Now, those rights have been suspended under the War Powers Act.
What I was taught in school was that is true unless you have been declared an enemy of the state, a traitor.
Well, but you can't be charged with treason unless there's a war, or you're in conflict. See, what is treason? You have a right to your peers because the government. I mean, right now, my speech is considered seditious. I am talking negatively about my government. So, by technical terms, my speech is seditious. Seditious speech is actually an act of treason, or could be considered. There are certain politicians, I am sure, I'm not big enough yet as a broadcaster, but when we get out there and we become as big as we're going to become, I am sure that you will be hearing some politicians that say I should be convicted of treason for talking.
I'll be supposed to tell you right now, Jeff, that I have never heard you say a treasonous word. Anything defined by the Constitution as treason.
Well, treason would be the fact that, sedition. I am speaking in negative light of my government during conflict.
But thank God to our Constitution, we have that right.
Well, no, you don't, because under the Patriot Act, you don't have that right because the government is actually enforcing that. That's what gives them the power to listen to your phone, to sniff your packets on your network. And if you do anything that they deem is wrong, you can't even, under the new laws that have been enacted under the Obama administration of recent, you can't even protest if there are Secret Service present. It is a felony.
I read that.
Yes. So I mean, so tell me whose boot are we actually under?
Oh, I'll tell you one step further. Obama screwed up 2 of my vacations.
Well, we're going to talk.
He was in New York at some point, and I couldn't go through New York, and then they shooed me off the front lawn of the White House because he was leaving.
Yeah.
And they all knew it was bullshit.
Well, I mean, the other part of that is a lot of people don't know is, the IRS now under Obamacare. And we're going to talk about this when we get back from the break. But I'll go ahead and let you know what? I'm going to let it simmer. I'm going to let people think about it. But the IRS
I'll let you go because, thank God, Jeff, I really appreciate our conversation. But I'll let you go. And I really am really happy because I can hear it in your voice. I got you fired up.
You got me going. You got me going. I love the conversation. And that's what it's all about here. I mean, it's not, I'm mature enough to say, hey, look. It's all about the conversation. And I tell people that this is like us sitting around, and we're going to do this someday. when we get things settled down and we can get the technology involved. My whole goal is to sit down at a Hardee's or whatever in the morning with the microphones on the table at restaurants, travel this great country. I'll be out in your neck of the woods. Absolutely. You're going to be on my list. Sit down at the dinner table with the microphone.
I got a place for you.
Yep. Sit down with the dinner table with 8 of us all around, all American. I don't care what, you can be the most liberal. You can be the hardest core GOP conservative. You can be whatever. Sit around the table and let's have this conversation. And let's talk about these things, because I think in our hearts, now you get people that just, you can't reason. There's no reasoning. Their whole mode of argument is, I'm right, you're wrong. That's their whole, and so those people, look, God bless them, wish them the best of luck and everything. But, my thing is, I want to have a conversation with everybody. And if you can prove me wrong, if anybody can get on the air right now and explain to me why the Second Amendment is so bad, I'll listen to you. I will. I'm all ears. I want to hear it. I want to hear why the Second Amendment. But when you do that, you better be ready to argue why then the First Amendment is bad. And the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, so that's the thing. But yeah, I'm looking forward. This summer we are looking at getting out. We're going to go on the road with Stone Anthony, and we're going to crisscross this great nation with him, and then we're going to be doing shows.
Him too. I'll tell you, I am the only Goodyear store here in little old Lodi, but I'll warn you, that song Stuck in Lodi. Be careful.
Why? What's that?
People get stuck here.
People get stuck here, as in we end up
stuck
just
in Lodi.
Is it like Hotel California?
No.
where you could never leave?
A little more hillbilly.
I got you. I got you. It's I could probably I could probably spend a few days there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll let you get back to your show, and I'm going to listen.
All right, sir. All right. You have a great night, and thanks for calling in.
And you and Stone are more than welcome.
We're going to be there. I'm going to be there. I don't know about Stone. I don't keep his agenda, But I am going. I am definitely, when I crisscross this America and we go on the road to a town near you, we will definitely. Lodi is definitely going to be on my list. The only problem is I don't know how I'm going to be able to sneak my guns in my because I'm not coming to California unless I'm armed. So I got to figure that one out. I got to figure that out. So
hey, we'll talk off. I'll let you know.
All right, my friend. Take care of yourself. Be good. Mr. Matt, that's what it's all about here. It is about the conversation. If you'd like to join in the conversation, give us a call, 1-800-580-4870. That's 1-800-580-4870. You can agree, you can disagree, you can jump up and down. Just be respectful. We can have meaningful, confrontational conversation and be completely respectful. It's all about communication. See, and that's the problem with most left and rights. They want their mode of winning an argument is belittling or character assassination or attack. When you can't argue, that's one of the things they tell you in politics. When you can't argue the facts, or if you don't have facts that are arguable, then you go on the attack. You attack. And that's not what this show's about. This show is about meaningful conversation. You can see, Matt and I, we had differences of opinion on certain things. But we were able to, as adults, as respectful men, to have a meaningful conversation. And that was incredible. That was 45 minutes. If you'd like to join in the conversation, give us a call at 1-800-580-4870. That's 1-800-580-4870. We're going to tell you it's top of the hour, so we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, I'm going to tell you what I know about the IRS. coming to your...
You are listening to PatriotFB.com.
From Washington, this is VOA News. U.S. Secretary of State arrives in Beijing to seek Chinese help in curbing North Korea's nuclear program. And major winter storm affects millions of people in the southern and eastern United States. I'm Michael Lippin reporting from Washington. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry has arrived in Beijing for talks aimed at encouraging Chinese leaders to put more pressure on their ally North Korea to end its nuclear weapons program. Kerry arrived in the Chinese capital early Friday from Seoul, where he met with South Korea's president and foreign minister a day earlier. In Seoul, Kerry told reporters that China has a unique and critical role in persuading Pyongyang to resume talks on nuclear disarmament. He acknowledged China's help in recent months, but said Beijing can do more as the leading supplier of fuel and banking services to North Korea. UN humanitarian chief Valerie Amos has urged the Security Council to take immediate action to help Syrian civilians suffering from a lack of aid in besieged communities. Speaking to the council on Thursday, Amos said there has been some progress in the humanitarian effort, including the evacuation of 1,400 Syrians from the city of Homs last week during a humanitarian pause in the Syrian conflict. But Amos said that evacuation cannot become a model because aid workers came under fire. Well, Afghanistan has released a group of prisoners whom U.S. forces have described as dangerous from a maximum security prison. As Sharon Bain reports from Islamabad, the Afghan prison release could further erode relations with Washington.
U.S. forces described the 65 detainees released from Bagram prison as dangerous individuals who have killed Afghan men, women, and children, as well as coalition soldiers. In a strongly worded statement, U.S. Forces Afghanistan said both American and Afghan forces had risked their lives to ensure the safety of the Afghan people and called upon the government to consider the potentially lethal effects of the releases. The U.S. Forces statement said they had provided hard evidence or strong investigative leads on the prisoners to the Attorney General's office. The freeing of the detainees will likely further aggravate what has already become a tense relationship between Washington and the government of President Hamid Karzai. Sharon Bain, VOA News, Islamabad.
Authorities in Mali have arrested the country's former defense minister, General Yamusa Camara, in connection with the killings of 21 troops loyal to ousted President Amadou Toumani Touré. Details of the charges against Mali's ex-defense chief were not immediately clear on Thursday. But the Reuters news agency quotes a senior military official as accusing Camara of trying to cover up the April 2012 killings of the Touré loyalists. Well, huge sections of the United States have taken another pounding from a massive winter storm affecting millions of people. Ice and snow blanketed many parts of the South and East, shutting down government offices, businesses, and schools. Here in Washington, hundreds of people took advantage of a day off to join a snow sculpture contest in DuPont Circle Park. Well, VOA reporter Carolyn Presutti has more on the impact of the storm.
It's mid-February, and already this winter has produced a series of massive storms, from the Midwest to the South to the East Coast. In 20 states, from Maine to Alabama, this week's snowstorm brought life to a standstill for millions. Hundreds of thousands without power, 6,000 flights canceled on one day, and schools shuttered.
I've lived here a long time, since the early 80s, and I don't think I've seen this, so it's pretty unusual, for sure.
Officials urged people, as they've done many times before, not to drive. The weather caused at least 17 deaths, mainly from traffic accidents. In Washington, D.C., the federal government shut down for the third time this winter. In Washington, Carolyn Presutti, VOA News.
And social media giant Facebook has now made it possible for users to identify their gender using categories other than male and female. Facebook said the changes launched on Thursday initially will be available to users in the United States. The adjustments give people more than 50 choices of how they describe themselves, including androgynous, bi, gender, or transsexual. Facebook says it plans to take the change global after working with activists abroad to come up with terms appropriate for other countries. Well, we're updating these stories and more on our website 24 hours a day.
You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. This is American Woman by the Guess Who? The Guess Who? American Woman. I love that song. I'm telling you, I've traveled the world. I've actually had the luxury and the opportunity to engage with many different cultures. And I can tell you, there's nothing like the good old US of A. I just, everything you need right here. Everything you need right here. I mean, they're trying their hardest to take it away from us. They're trying their hardest to make us like the rest of the world. And, my answer to that is if I wanted to live in the European Union, I'd move there. If I wanted to live in Russia, I'd move there. If I wanted to live in the UK, I'd move there. Oh, no, wait, I can't because they have an immigration system. And they enforce it, by the way, unlike our government. Our government spends more time keeping us fighting with each other than actually solving the problems. I took a poli-sci class many years ago, college, and I remember a professor, and he's actually fairly well known. Fairly well known. And did a lot of, lectures, guest series, and all of that, and written textbooks. And one of the things that, he laid out, and it was amazing, he said if politicians just did 10% of what they say they're going to do, within 60 years, all the world's ills would be resolved and fixed. 60 years. 10%. They just do 10% of what they say they are going to do when we elect them into office. Just 10%. Just 3% above the brain power that they use. Just 10%. Within 60 years, all of the world's problems would have been resolved. See, which is amazing. It's not really, but it is when you think about it. It's amazing because the politicians now know that they can say whatever they want to say, and you'll be like, and then all of a sudden Britney Spears or whoever the tramp of the week is, they'll parade them out. The Miley Cyruses, the whatever the tramp of the week or whatever the rapper of the day. and his salacious comments or their salacious actions. We'll go back to who? What did he say? Think about that. You have a president of the United States, not on one occasion, not on two occasions, but on several occasions, get up and lie to the American people. Get up and just flat out lie. Flat out lie. And of course he's going to sit there and say, well, we didn't think it through. Wasn't a lie. We don't know what we knew, what we know, what we don't know, what we knew, what we don't know. Sound familiar? Depends on what the word is. See, I could get that from, I could understand if you did it once, you did it but twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. This president, this administration has just out and out shown us that they have zero credibility. None. And now it's even gotten so bad that they're not even going to lie about it. They're just going to do it. Don't care. I've got a pen and a phone. I'll do whatever I want to do. He said it. Those are his words. That's the president's words, not my words. That's not my inference of a statement. I didn't take a statement that he made and then deduce the fact that, well, that means he's got a pen and a phone and he's going to do. No, he said it. He said, I'll do whatever I got to do. And once again, it's a weekly thing, but once again, this president rewrote the law. Rewrote the law. Now, I know a lot of you guys are sitting there going, well, why isn't the Supreme Court? If he rewrote the law, the Supreme Court's supposed to, do that. Well, the problem is this. The Supreme Court cannot act upon a law unless it's brought in argument in front of them. So someone has to, bring it in front of the courts. Now, Rand Paul is doing that. Rand Paul's actually doing that. And we'll see. But, this administration, let's kind of back up and tell you how these guys work. Remember this thing called Fast and Furious? Let me tell you what this administration did. Let me tell you what Eric Holder did, who literally, Barack Obama gave up his law license a while back. Well, actually, he surrendered it. There's 2 ways that you give up your law license, by the way. You give it up because, there's these things called continuing educational credits you have to do. You have to continue your education. You have to pay the bar, and you have to continue on. So some attorneys, some people that don't want to practice law anymore, are not going to go in front of a judge or not going to whatever. They will voluntarily give up their law license. They will give it up just for those reasons. Now, there's another way that you give up your license. It's basically where the judicial, your local bar association, which they have like a board of directors. They have, individuals that sit on the bar that oversee conduct related issues. And basically, this is fairly well known in Chicago, but it's not, Axelrod and them are really good at holding this back. This started to come out in the earlier presidential elections, but the problem is this. You start airing laundry like that, when you get to that level, there's a quid pro quo. The things that are known are never discussed. What is on the table is like a boxing match. If you know your opponent throws a wicked right hook, you plan for the right hook. And if you're a good boxer, you know that he's planning for your right hook, unless it's just so devastating that there's nothing he can do, and then you go ahead and throw it. So you do other things. And so typically in politics, what happens is the things that are known are off the table. You know, birth certificates, religion preferences, business dealings. I mean, it goes on both sides. You know, you got to remember that both of these parties are in bed. Their methods might be different, but their outcomes are exactly the same. And so, getting back to the conversation, you know, it's not surprising. It's not at all. I mean, this president, for him to break the law, I mean, it's not surprising. And don't expect the lawlessness of an individual or a politician to come out during the election. When you get at that level, it's kind of, you know, off the table. But this president lost his law license. He was asked to give it up. You need to investigate that. I'm not going to tell you why. You need to do your own investigation. You need to look into Michelle Obama's practices at Chicago General. She sat on the board of directors, patient dumping. Oh, yeah, the president who's all about, you know, making sure that everybody gets the care that they need. Michelle Obama, when she was a director, sitting on the board of directors of a hospital here in Chicago, was in trouble and was cited, wasn't prosecuted because she gave up her license, but was under investigation for patient dumping. They would take patients who could not afford, who would come into the general hospital, the public hospital, couldn't afford, they would patch them up enough, and then they would ship them off to a North Shore or a richer hospital. Yeah. Very well documented. You know, this president's relation with Tony Resco, sitting in felon, you know, prison right now. There's, you know, so it shouldn't shock you. This is a man who the law does not apply to him. You know, Sal Alinsky, his mentor, that Luciferian, Sal Alinsky, said, do whatever you got to do, including lie, as long as the outcome is what you want. That's what this president's doing. So it should be no shock that they're going to break the law. Once again, the president, with his pen and, you know, tells businesses there's no more employee mandate. So now the businesses are going, but you know, the president and his administration, they have a fix for that. And they're going to use the IRS. And we're going to talk about that when we get back from the break. You know, once again, this president that slowly, ever so slowly, encroaching on our personal freedoms.
Join us at www.patriotfb.com, a social network for patriots. For all your prepping needs, visit our friends at MountainViewOffGridLiving.com or call 208-615-6331. 208-615-6331. Get involved. Get involved. Support Stone Anthony for President. www.stoneanthony2016.com. Put a real American in the White House.
Well, in North Carolina, way back in the hill, lived my old pappy and he had him a still. He brewed white lightning till the sun went down, and then you'd fill him a jug and he'd pass it around. Mighty, mighty pleasing, pappy's corn squeezing. White lightning. Well, the G-men, T-men, revenuers too, searching for a place where he made his brew. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking.
White lightning.
Instead of Mountain Dew, I took a little sip and right away I knew. As my eyes bugged out and my face turned blue, lightning started flashing, thunder started clashing.
White lightning.
Well, the G-men, revenuers too, searching for a place where it made its brew. They were looking, trying to book him, but my pappy kept on cooking.
White lightning.
White Lightning, Mr. George Jones. You're listening to the Midnight Patriot radio show and podcast. I am your host, Jeff Norton. You can join me here live every Monday through Friday from 9 p.m. till 12 a.m. Central Standard Time, or on the web at www.patriotfb.com. That is www.patriotfb.com. So, getting back to the lawlessness of this administration. So this is what, this is now. Oh, it will never happen. Remember those words? Oh, someone's got to administer it. Someone's got to oversee it. And so the IRS, obviously since they're the closest to your income, they know if you're working or not. But there you go. You now have the government. Obamacare IRS demands business show bona fide reasons for layoffs. The IRS will require employers who terminate employees to show that they did so for bona fide business reasons. All right, let me give you a bona fide business reason. And I know that we have a caller, so we'll bring him into the conversation. But let me give you a bona fide reason. I'm a business owner. I have the right to employ, to hire, to fire, to terminate whoever I want to. Do you agree with me, caller?
Yeah, I do, Jeff. I mean, this is, by the way, this is Sean from just down yonder.
Yeah, Sean.
Your hometown area. It's coming to this. People haven't realized yet. The war has already started.
Yes.
We're in the diplomatic phase right now, trying to solve it peacefully. But we've lost every battle to this point.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, I agree with you. And I get criticized because I get on here and I say, we got to start taking it to the streets. We got to start meeting force with force. If they want to have their MRADs, then we need to ratchet it up. Whenever these politicians are in your town, whenever they're doing their little speeches, their little propaganda tour, their Pravda tours, we need to be there with blowhorns and signs, and we need to just let them know that we're not putting up with it anymore. I'm a firm believer, but I get criticized for doing that because I'm saying that I'm taking it to the next level when we don't need to get there just yet.
Oh no, I hope it doesn't ever come to that.
Yeah.
But inevitably, that's the way it's going because of the way that they're acting. You take this whole IRS thing, right?
Yeah.
So you're telling me that if I have a business,
yep,
that if an employee is not doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they were either trained to do,
yes,
or what they were brought in because of their education level to be able to do,
yes.
Well, I can't fire them.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's what it's coming down to.
Well, and this is let me finish the statement here. Bona fide, you have to have a bona fide business reason to lay someone off in order to be eligible for the delaying of the Obamacare health insurance employer mandate. Now, where is the equal protection under the law clause? In other words, if you want to, go along with the government, we're going to give you this benefit. And I don't care what they say; it's a benefit of the fact that that you're going to participate in the Obamacare. For a business, they're treating it as a benefit. If you don't want to go along with the government, then there's a penalty. That's the way I read that.
Exactly, but where's all the IO personnel stepping in and saying, hey, you know what? You can't do this.
Well,
because that's what IO psychologists are for.
Yeah, I know.
You know, they're supposed to step in and say, hey, you know what? This is what the laws say. This is, equal opportunity, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's, Civil Rights Act of 1991, Disability Act of 1990, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
When you don't follow that criteria because, we can shut you down because you won't take this to,
Exactly.
for the employees. Well, what is that?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, man, it comes down to a couple of different things. It's showing how much we've lost, that they're not fearful of repercussion.
Oh, no. And that's the thing, and I think that's the point, that it's gotten to the point to where they're no longer lying to us. They're just telling us what they're going to do, and if we don't like it, tough. Get over it.
Yeah, pretty much just say, too bad you haven't done anything to this point.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is that we haven't held their feet to the fire. I was listening to a nationally syndicated show today or yesterday, and one of the things that they actually had a demo. It was funny. They had I think JJ. It was actually JJ show. He played a clip, an audio clip of a Democrat, a liberal, who is all for and loves this president, but said, well, wait a minute, this is dangerous territory. And the framers of the Constitution, when they said that the judiciary, the executive, and then the Congress, the legislative branches, the whole premise of them setting up the government that way is that they would fight for their powers. They would fight, and because of that natural conflict of them trying to retain their power, that you would have a balanced system. But now this government, I'm just going to say this government, not this administration, but this government basically has taken second seat to the President of the United States. The President of the United States is like, I'm going to do whatever I want to do and get over it.
Well, yeah, we have direct representation of that. When you look at some of the governors that just, bow down to them, and they run havoc in their state.
Yeah.
Okay, like we have California, Illinois. They're the two major big ones. But there's other states across the country because, they're basically told you're going to take Common Core or else you're getting no money.
Exactly.
Well, states can't afford to run all their schools.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
But, okay, so we have that issue. Okay, the states can't run their schools, and if they don't take this program, we're going to be, our kids are going to be out. Well, wait a minute, that's not right.
Yeah.
But you know what? Nobody stood up and said, hey, you're wrong.
Yeah. Well, and you're absolutely right. And these are numbers that a lot of Americans don't understand or they don't get. For every dollar that they take, so the state of Wisconsin, the great, Wisconsin, whatever state you're in, for every dollar the federal government takes from you and everything, they only give back roughly 8 cents back to the state for every dollar. And those are tied to programs in which are participatory programs. In other words, like you said, if you want to have access to the highway funds, you have to have a certain DUI law. You have to have seatbelt laws. Your cars have to comply to this or that. If you want educational money, you have to have this, or you have to teach Common Core. You have to have, diversification training in the classroom for the students, not with the teachers, but with the students. You have to, and so even the 8 cents, for every dollar they take, they return 8 cents, but those 8 cents come along with a bunch of rules and regulations. It's complicated when a lot of your state governments have to hire what they call fiscal intermediaries. These are companies and corporations, and they take a slice of that pie. And what they do is they translate these programs for the federal government for the states. And then, of course, their fees are a percentage of the money that they get from the federal government.
All right. So you're taking that 8 cents,
8 cents.
And now they're only getting 4 cents.
Exactly.
Which causes a major problem. But then now we've got the IRS being able to step in to, mom and pop's little hardware store down the street and tell them, because they have 5 employees, well, you can't lay people off because, you're not meeting your expectations of quota for health care.
Well, wait a minute. These, I will say that these are for employers of 50. Any employer under 40 that employs 49 or less, they don't have to participate in Obamacare.
49 or less, because 50 and 100 are exempt.
50,
right now.
50 or So it's a little bit different. So I just want to make sure. But still, the fact I find it offensive, the fact that the government is now using the IRS to implement a program in which we, the people, and our elected officials did not legislate. They didn't pass the law that gave Obamacare this authority or this power or this law. They didn't do that. I mean,
okay, we can take the same concept. Like the guy that devised Common Core, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He was part of the Weathermen.
Yeah.
Back in the 1970s.
Bill Ayers.
Bill Ayers, yeah, thank you.
Yep.
He was notorious for doing some horrible things. Him and his wife.
He was a terrorist. He was deemed a terrorist. Look, I was actually, it was funny. It's not funny, but I was down, obviously with PatriotFB.com, we were looking at moving our servers. So there's a server farm in Algonquin, Illinois, which it's right across the street from United Airlines corporate headquarters, and it used to be the United Airlines ticket reservation center. And I went into and they were showing me this thing was a concrete building. If you ever been in the military, they call them the blockhouse, on military bases. Mm-hmm. The solid were you in the military?
Yes.
So you know what I'm talking about, the big solid block houses that usually where the base commander or post commander, where his offices are. This thing was hardened like that, and I was like, wow, this thing's incredible. Why did they build this? And they said that, well, when it was built back in the 60s and 70s, they had the Weathermen, and they were concerned about domestic terrorism. And United Airlines was on like the number one list. They were a huge target. So when they built this call center, they built this thing. This building looks like an old military blockhouse, and it's fortified. We're talking like 8 feet thick concrete, no exposed glass. The facade, the rooms within rooms, and naturally it comes. It's a great security center because that's where AT&T, all the long distance carriers come into the city of Chicago through this place, so it's a natural place for them. But it's just funny that you mentioned that, because they specifically said, remember Bill Ayers of the Weathermen, the guy that's helping out Obama? Yeah, they built this building because of him and his terroristic organization.
Right, so we've got a guy that was a known terrorist in the 1970s.
Oh, yeah.
Running things for our kids' education.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty crackpotted.
Yep.
It goes into the whole thing about, lie to them as much as you need to get them to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, that's their whole...
But then when you take other things into consideration, how many people out there know that the FBI, back in April of last year, conducted a whole big thing on Spring City, Tennessee, because some guy opened fire on a nuclear power plant?
Huh?
Now that we have this incident that happened in San Jose.
Yeah, in San Jose, where we were talking about it, where they opened fire on the. I didn't hear about the nuclear power plant.
Yeah, I mean, you type it on a Google search, man, you'll find it.
Oh wow!
And it's funny that nuclear power plant, federal jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Now we have it where they attacked a transformer farm that provides power. Probably a percentage of it goes to San Francisco, and an X amount goes to San Jose. Just got hit.
Yep.
We've got basically a terrorist telling the American people that, hey, he's no longer a terrorist now.
Yeah.
He's an educator.
Yeah.
Telling the American people what they're going to do. We have somebody, the gentleman in the presidency, running outside his accord by saying, you know what, I'll just X you out because my pen can do that.
Yep.
And the IRS is going to be his one of his swords to do so.
Absolutely.
Along with DHS and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, we've got, for God's sake, the weather service are buying ammunition. What does the weather service need ammunition for?
Oh, I actually have the answer for that. I can tell you. Here's the answer. This is the answer they're not going to talk about. The Weather Service actually has several, throughout the United States, they have several satellite uplink systems. In the event of a NOAA or natural weather event, they can take control of satellites. They have that authority and that power because they can, under under FEMA rules and stuff, they have the authority to take over satellites and to use them accordingly. And that's, and you look into that. There is a police force within the National Weather Service, and I have this on great terms I will say that it's 100% accurate. If you do the research, you'll find it. They don't talk about it because it's one of those hush, keep quiet things, because they don't want people to know that there are uplinks. You can only assume there are uplinks, but there are secondary uplinks that are outside of the ones that are known. And they have a police force, and they actually hire special forces, ex-special forces as their police force. And these are the elite of the elite. And so for training purposes, they bought the ammo, and they have to protect. And I understand. See, I'm not one to say the government shouldn't have secrets. I mean, they have to protect. Those facilities. Think about it. If you're a spy, or if you're, think about these guys blowing up transformers or shooting at nuclear power plants. If they knew where these facilities were and they attacked those facilities, you knock one satellite out of orbit, you can potentially destroy all modern communications in the world. I mean,
I understand that.
So that's why they do it.
The volume of ammunition that's being bought, it's surpassing what we use in OIS.
Not, and like I said, I love, not really, not when you add up an officer. All right, so when you think about an officer and you think about a federal, and I'm not saying that they're not buying up, that's not the point. I mean, the numbers, and if you look at, I think when you do the numbers and you look at, now the argument is why do we have so many federal officers, right? How many, why do we need all of these federalized officers? That's probably the argument that I would be making. But when you add up the amount of federal officers amongst all of the departments, you also have to remember that a lot of your local police departments are actually buying the ammunition through this grant. What it was is they created a big grant, and they said, we're going to buy in the next 3 years X amount of ammo. And they did that. And so all of these agencies now, because they can benefit from the price breaks and the price structures, they jump into there and they grab it all up. But when you break it down, you're a shooter, right? You shoot. Think of, in a year's time, how many rounds of ammo do you go through?
Every time I go to the range, I go through about 200 rounds.
About 200 rounds. How many times do you go to the range?
Probably once a month.
Once a month. So that's
reload my own rounds.
Well, you do your own rounds. So you're easily into 2,000 rounds, right?
Yeah, probably.
All right. So these officers, if you take all of the training, and you know what, I hope these officers, these federal officers, are trained more than you and I are. That whole notion. I kind of want them to be skilled. They come into my house, I want them to be experts if they in a hostage situation or whatever. But if you break it down, and we've done the numbers, I've done the numbers. It's about 1,200 rounds per officer per year for training.
Mm-hmm.
So. I don't know. I mean,
now comes into question that, you say your local sheriff's department, well, we don't have the ammunition to go out and train.
Well,
okay, well, there's this grant where there's a lot of questions.
Well, you still got to pay for it.
Need to be answered.
Well,
they're not coming forth with them telling the truth.
Yeah, no. And I'm not saying that they're not buying exorbitant amounts. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when you actually add the numbers up, and the fact that they put out a proposal for X amount of rounds, that doesn't mean that they're going to buy X amount. It just means, look, in the next 3 years, we as the government will potentially buy 50 million rounds of ammo.
Right,
And
so it gives every police officer a chance to get out and fire if their sheriff's department can afford it. Et cetera, et cetera.
you still got to pay for them. I mean, the local municipalities still have to. The government's not going to give it to. Well, they give
But
give
that
them the MRAPs.
also goes into as well. If you think about it, the production level that these companies that make ammunition have to keep up with.
Oh yeah.
Well, now that affects our prices.
Well,
at the store.
Well, actually, the NRA and look, I mean, I want to be fair to the NRA magazine. About 2 issues ago, actually had an article on the on ammunition and the scarcity of it and the reasons why. And all of the manufacturers say that the actual government purchases for ammunition of actually, this is in the NRA magazine, so you got to kind of believe this is not Jeff Norton talking. It's about 2 magazines ago. They actually did an article on it. They said that your manufacturing company said actually the government supply or demand for ammunition has actually gone down. What is driving the increases and the lack of supply is you and I, the consumer. And
I wouldn't doubt it because everybody gets in a frenzy and runs out and buys them. I mean that's understandable.
Yeah, I mean,
but
the bigger argument is why
this whole thing of what is truly going on that they're not telling us.
Well,
because every major fight that we've come across, New York, they just recently lost all their gun rights pretty much.
Well, yeah,
Chicago gained some, which is that's a pretty damn good thing.
Yeah.
But in the same course, what did they lose in the process?
Not really, because one of the things that scares me about Chicago, and I'm still researching it, and I'm still looking at it, but let me tell you what I think the play is here. The FOID, Lisa Madigan went after the FOID card holders. She went to the state police, and she said that she wanted a list of every FOID gun owner. She, through the system, and now the state police said, "Look, I can't give that." The commander of the state police said, "I can't give that to you because the charter, when we implemented his legal argument was when we implemented this system, we said that this information would never be shared, and so legally we're not going to share that because when it was implemented and the laws were enacted." There was criteria surrounding how that law was going to be ran, and the privacy laws and all that. That stuff was all clearly defined. Thank God. So Lisa Madigan lost that argument. Under the concealed carry laws in the state of Illinois, you are not afforded that same level of protection. So if you get a concealed carry license in Illinois, there is a possibility that your name is going to end up on some Justice Department list somewhere with Lisa Madigan. So I'm not too... I understand you have a right to carry in the state of Illinois. You have to go through the hoops, 16 hours of training, the background check, all that stuff. I understand it's a lot better than what it was. I'm not going to argue that. But I'm wondering... in Illinois politics, one thing you learn when you don't get something without giving up something. And I'm just wondering what the good people of Illinois gave up that they don't know about just yet.
Exactly. So. And well, in terms of that, too, Illinois will be recognizing Florida's concealed carry permit and Montana's, I believe.
Yeah, the reciprocality.
Now, if someone gets just the Montana one, which Illinois recognizes, but it's through the state of Montana, that's a different ballgame because now, you have to look at the laws that are there for their concealed carry if they can be given out or not.
Well, I tell people this all the time. When there's a legality that you step into when you have a concealed carry versus someone who doesn't have one anyways. There's a whole different set of rules and things of that nature, and you have to be very careful on what you do. Now, I am actually getting a Illinois concealed carry out of state. I am getting, because Illinois, they're not going to recognize Wisconsin's concealed carry law. But I'm going to go ahead and because I am an NRA instructor and everything, I have a buddy who teaches the class, so I'm going to get the Illinois, and I'm going to pay the $300, because I do spend a lot of time, and I'm going to get the out-of-state license to carry for the state of Illinois as an out-of-state resident. And you can do that.
Down here in Tennessee, where it's $60 to get it.
Yeah.
Hey, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Which actually, it's funny because, my first concealed carry license was in the state of Tennessee, so.
Yeah, but, what it is that people don't realize that we're coming to a breaking point
yes.
that, they slowly take away liberties.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
yeah.
not that they're going to do something bold and drastic where they just come in like Pac-Man and chop the big freaking orb and chase after the ghost. It's going to be one pellet at a time.
Well, they did that. That's what 9/11 was.
Yeah.
9/11 was absolutely... 9/11 was that Pac-Man event where they just came in and chomped. And they realized that this government... See, the problem is this administration can't get away with that maneuver. Bush could get away with it because of the type of administration that he had and the political climate of the time and stuff like that. This administration, if there was another 9/11 event, it just wouldn't fly. Everybody would be looking at the government saying, you guys were behind it to begin with. And so what they're doing...
And that kind of goes into the whole thing about the power plant.
Yeah. There's a soft deal.
The thing in California going on with the PMG there.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you wonder, okay, the guys there cut phone lines.
Yeah.
Underground phone lines. Well,
they broke
how the hell did they know they were there?
They broke into all right, so I'm vandals. Think about this. And that's what we were talking about, a little bit last night. I'm a vandal. Yeah. Say I got AK-47s and I got a couple hundred rounds, right? And it wasn't one person. There was a lot of them. And the thing is this. I'm going to take the effort of breaking, apparently the phone lines that ran into, they were in an underground vault, in a storage vault. This is a security. The police, when they arrived on the scene, they couldn't get into the facility because it was that locked up. The police could not get in. They had to wait until 3 o'clock in the morning. They got out there about 11:40. They had to wait until about 3 in the morning until the electric department people got out there to unlock the facility before the police could even go in. So it is a secured facility. And the fact that these whoever, we don't know who it was just yet, went into the vault, they broke into the vault, they cut and dismantled the security phone lines, dismantled the system, and then they went out and perpetrated their attack on the facility. Look, I don't care, this is what I think. There was, have you ever heard of Dick Machinko?
Mm-hmm.
SEAL Team 6, dude.
Yeah, I read all his books,
Yeah, so he had an operation called Red Cell. Remember that?
Yeah.
Remember one of the books? Now, a lot of his books were based in a nebulous fact fiction. But Operation Red Cell was an actual true organization. And what they would do is that they would actually probe facilities. They would. And they would probe them to look at their vulnerabilities, bases and all that. And I'm not saying Dick Machinko or any of those guys were doing this. I actually think that attack was a set-up attack. Was an actual I don't think it was a terrorist attack. I don't think it was vandals. It was too sophisticated to be vandals. I
understand where you're going with this, but this is my question. How much you want to make a bet? 10-1, they're going to blame it on some right-wing group.
Oh, absolutely.
And my other question is, how do they know it was AK-47s?
Well, they can tell, I guess, by the casings and the well, you're right. There's different ammunition you can fire the same round, but
exactly, it's a 30 caliber round.
It's a 30 caliber. You're right. So I guess the assumption is that it was, and you don't know how much of that was editorialized. In other words, was put in there by.
This kind of goes into the whole thing too. They did the whole big gun grab thing about the AR-15s.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're putting the AK-47 on the chopping block.
Oh, they're going to put whatever they can get.
Right, but it falls into that same lines of, are people just not seeing the psychological ploy of this?
Yeah.
If they keep putting out now the AK-47s are bad,
well,
and they retouch back that AR-15s are bad too.
Yeah.
It numbs people.
Well,
the psychological aspects of warfare.
But what I don't understand about that is, we're talking about event. For those who don't know, let me kind of. You go out to Patriot FB, you guys can read about it. But the backstory is that there was an attack last year. This was last year, about October, right?
Right.
October of last year.
It come to the limelight.
Yeah, 2003, and it's now. So I'm kind of. How do you say this? If I was a government and I wanted to sell the argument of guns are bad and these types of weapons are bad to have in people's hands, and terror, and look, we need to have surveillance on the American people because look, one of our power plants came under attack by a sophisticated group, either domestic or foreign. Don't you think that would have been all over the news? I mean, think about it. This government, don't you think that they would have published that all over the news? And then they would have said, see, we're here to protect you. We're the all-caring, all-nurturing government, and we're here to protect you. And that's why we need to listen to you. And, there's Nimrods out there, the 43%ers out there that'll go, yeah, the government I don't have nothing to hide. So, yeah. So,
yeah. But you have to look, too, that what was going on in April of last year when this incident happened with the AR-15 push.
Yeah,
that's the thing. You have to look at what's going on.
Yeah, I just can't understand why the government. I actually think it was a red cell operation. My heart and my gut is telling me that it was a dry run to see the vulnerabilities of our electrical system and how easily, because even though they blew, a lot of people say, well, they blew up these coils and stuff. Well, okay. I mean, in the scope of things, what, a couple $100,000? I mean, they proved their point. They proved to the electrical companies that their grids and everything were susceptible to attack. And that's why the government didn't publicize it, because I think the government it was a red cell operation. And our government has a history of doing that.
China now, or even other countries that use the AK series rifles, a lot of them use AK-74.
Yes.
So it's a smaller caliber.
It's a different caliber, exactly. So it's it's a domestic.
So, it kind of, they're saying AK-47. That's an older caliber.
Yeah.
Okay. That's plausible what you're saying.
Yeah.
But in the same ideology, why not just admit, hey, you know what? We tested a theory that we had, and this is what we came up with, folks. This is what needs to be changed. Just tell us the truth and let us, deal with it as the people, instead of trying to hide everything from us. Because when they hide it, what's it look like now? It looks like a giant conspiracy theory.
Well, it does. I mean, there's bigger. I'm still trying to figure out how you fit a 747 through a 16-foot hole, but that's a whole nother story. So let's go back. I think this, reading the Dick Machuco books and reading the stuff that he did, and like I said, it's very well documented. There's a lot of things that they did very similar to this. I think this just got out of hand. I don't think the government wants it publicized because, I mean, look, if I was like I said, I'm going to back up and I'm going to play the sick, sadistic Sal Alinsky reading Obama, and I have a hard on for AK-47s, any assault rifle, or ARs, and because I'm stupid, I don't know the difference between an AR and an assault rifle and all that. But so I'm ignorant to the fact, and I'm going to be him, and I gotta sell my agenda, my gun grabbing agenda, and then also I gotta sell the fact that the NSA, snooping on every phone call, and because of all the terrorism, and there's good reason. So I have to sell that. So I just had an attack on a substation outside of San Francisco by whatever organization or whatever group. Don't you think that I would have jumped all over the news, all over the radio? Don't you think I'd have Jim Carrey, have everybody talking about this, Piers Morgan, everybody talking about this? The fact that no one's talking about it in mainstream media makes me highly suspicious. The fact that something happened that was outside of the government, and they don't want it to get out there, because when the truth comes out and people start questioning it, then the truth is going to come out, and we're going to find out that it was one of these red cell operations. And then the next question that, naturally being the thinkers that we are, we're going to say, well, how many other operations like this have you guys perpetrated that aren't actually, that you sold to us, that were domestic terrorism attacks, but were actually government controlled or government sanctioned? And if you don't think our government does that stuff, then you need to go back and read history. Let's talk about Gulf of Tonkin. Let's talk about Operation Northwoods. Let's talk about 9/11 and Building 7. Let's talk. Our government does that. And go read Dick Pacheco's books.
I'm not denying the facts.
Yeah.
But what it comes down to is this: when you start looking at everything in its entirety, it does pose a question of this too. If they didn't orchestrate it, would they want it publicized? Because you know what? That was just showed that, there are different commandos from all over the world.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows that every country has their own special forces units. They may be equivalent to a Navy SEAL. Majority of countries don't have anything like the Green Berets, because they have a very special type of job. But you have like the Sputniks from Russia.
Yeah.
Who, that's one of their things. They're not, everyone's like, oh, they're like a tier 1, like Delta Force. No, their design is to create as much havoc on the battlefield as possible.
Well.
And honestly, for a country that's getting ready to invade, or possibly a domestic type thing, what is the first thing on a military strategic level you attack? The power.
Oh, you're going to go after the infrastructure.
Power, water.
Yep.
Then you infiltrate the citizenry.
Yep.
That's the way it goes.
I agree. And
every private learns this.
And who knows? Yeah, who knows? It might have been an attack in our government. Let's talk about the missile that was shot off of the coast of California about 2 years ago, and all of your rocket science. I mean, you got. I mean, look. You got some of the top what the Triton missiles and all. What's out there in California? I forget the it's not red. That's the one there in Alabama, but the Air Force, missile range. All of the experts are there, and they were watching this contrail come out of the ocean and shoot straight up. And they clearly said it was a missile. Of course, the government, that was basically China saying, "Hey, look. We have the capabilities now," and all of your experts, and if you read a lot of the journals and the periodics, military, Jane's Defense and stuff, they clearly say that those are missile. That was a missile contrail. It came out of the ocean. It came out of a submarine, and so who's to say? Maybe the government is holding back, like you said, but look, anybody. If you're military, I know you are, and I know, if you're trained and if you're part of a special forces or group or organization, you can infiltrate pretty much any facility in the United States within minutes, if not seconds. So that's no big secret.
But what the funny part is everyone keeps looking at, they keep pumping out that we have the best special forces in the world here. Navy SEALs are great, but there's other, like the Sputniks.
Yeah.
During the Cold War, they would have rolled right over us.
What's really funny is I got buddies in Delta, that I know, and when they do an operation, you know what they say when they're doing an operation? It's Navy SEALs. That's there's that. Did you see that YouTube video where they did there's a YouTube video where they actually took a helmet cam of they were rescuing a banker in Iraq or Iran. It was Iraq, obviously, not Iran. And it's you can YouTube it and you'll see them coming in, and it's hilarious because as they're freeing and they're tapping these, and it's real video. It's not fake. It's real stuff. It's been declassified. It's hilarious because the guys are like, "You guys Navy SEALs," and all the Delta guys are going, "Yep, we're Navy SEALs," and it's hilarious because it's kind of, I don't know. Like I said, I know a lot of Delta. I'm not diminishing anybody in our armed services. God bless, all the way to the cook. God bless them and God bless their service.
Purpose, but it's funny that they always give the Navy SEAL, yep, we're Navy SEALs, like you're saying, yep, we're Navy SEALs, and they just kind of, okay, they're the badasses. Well, SEAL Team 6 is cool. They're Tier 1 operators.
Yeah.
But they, when they operate with Delta, they're no longer SEALs. They're Delta.
Yeah, the Delta is, and I, like I said, I'm a little partial to those guys, and it was funny, and I had a friend who, it was years and years and years ago. We were out at the range, and she was just tearing it up. I mean, she was just, it was incredible. She was IDF, obviously. Mm-hmm. She was Israeli IDF, and we were putting the gongs out at 300, and we were shooting at a range. Well, actually, it was there in Tennessee, there outside of Shelbyville, Tennessee. Okay. We set up a shooting range, and we were shooting a good 600-700 yards, and she was with iron sights, and she was gonging them with iron sights. And she was a sniper. I asked her, I said, well, what'd you do? And she was a sniper, and she sat on the border, and her job, her sole purpose was to shoot people as they try to cross the border, and that's what she did. And she doesn't make any bones about it. But these are hard. You're absolutely correct. There are other organizations that the Chinese special forces. Those are some scary guys.
Yeah,
North
Korean special forces.
Yeah, those guys. But you're right. I'm a little partial to Delta guys. I'm a lot partial to Delta.
We're all partial to whatever organization that we know people in or have been part of, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm-hmm.
But what it comes down to is everything that's being orchestrated has taken 70 years to do.
Yeah.
And what are the people so worried about now? What the new PlayStation is that just came out? What new video game came out?
Miley Cyrus doing the grind.
Guys sit at home and play video games?
Yeah,
Big
I know.
deal. The video game.
I know. It like I said, is that they have figured it out. When I was in Tennessee, it was wild because they're at Vanderbilt University. There's a psychiatrist, and I went because I went to these classes that they offered to learn for business and to learn about like webpage kind of stuff and colors and there's a science, and these guys are scary. These neuroscientists, and they talk about how imagery, and they talk about, and one of the things that a lot of Americans don't realize, and you got to look at this, TVs traditionally run at about 60 hertz. Computer screens, absolutely. Now, TVs are a little bit different now, but the older TVs used to run about 60 to 66 megahertz at frequency, the flickering. And that flickering, believe it or not, when they want to induce a pseudo, not coma, but they want to induce kind of a lethargic thing, they will put you in front of a strobe light, and they will do it at about 60 to 66 megahertz, the same rate in which TV operates. And what it does is they hook you up to and I saw that. We were there, and they were, because part of this class was visualization, and like when you go into hospitals, the reason why there's certain colors is because they induce certain moods in people, and there's a science to this. And these guys, I am sure, are the same guys now that are telling the president, you need to wear this tie, you need to wear this color suit, the flags need to be at this equal distance at this rate. You need to, it's the science of deception, and and like I said, I took a class at Vanderbilt, and so I saw these and colors and it's insane, and how they've tapped into our brain. And
okay, we can take this into perspective so everybody can grasp what you're talking about.
Sure.
I'm getting my master's in psychology, so I understand
what
you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
but what you're pretty much explaining is if you take and look at they're saying AR-15s are bad. Now this little blip about AK-47s are bad.
Yep.
Handguns are bad. Blah, 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 blah. It's a slow process.
Yep, little teasers.
But in the course of the process of the PSYOPs ploy, hey, you got to watch out for these right-wing Christians here.
Yep.
They're willing to take arms and fight.
Yep.
You got, this group or that group, et cetera, et cetera. And you don't do it overnight. It's not like, let's all go to the movies like they used to have where they flash popcorn in the middle of the movie so fast that you wouldn't register it, but, the part of your cerebral cortex does.
Yes.
Now you get hungry.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I think, yeah, no,
they're doing it on a scale that people don't see.
It's metered. I call it metered media. They introduce it and they pull it back. It's kind of like, they introduce it, they take it to one level, then they pull it back, and then the next time they'll take it to the next level, and then they pull it back, and then the third level. I mean, that's why we got gas that's at $3.49 and no one's really screaming. Remember when it went up to $3? Everybody's like, oh my God. Now when gas goes down to $2.89 a gallon, I don't know what it is, not by you, but when it goes down to $2.89 a gallon, everybody here is like, oh yeah. Gas is $2.89. Yeah, what a deal! And it's the measured media approach. And what they do is you're absolutely right. They release it. They have a fury of information. They get everybody. They get their emotions involved. And then what they do is they pull you back. And think about it. It's psychological warfare. You're studying it. I mean, they get your emotions. They get your emotions. And think about it, they pull those emotions back instantly. And then what happens to you? You go into a depression. When you're in depression, you're malleable. Your mind is malleable, and so then they start interjecting little messages. And because you're at your weakest, and they interject little messages into your brain. And then the next event
thing, I guess from my viewpoint of patriotism, I'm a liberal. I don't care what the guy next door does.
Yeah.
If he has a boyfriend, good for him. If he has a girlfriend, good for him. And if he does weird things with his dog, well, that's really strange, and don't let me find out about it.
Yeah.
But, what it comes down to is this, is if you're fed something a little bit at a time, you're going to believe it.
Yeah.
So we don't know exactly what's going on next. So everybody that you see all these groups now, they're jumping up and down. We're Christians, or we got to fight for our rights and save this country, this and that. Well, you know what, folks? You're a little late on that punch.
Yep.
Because this has been put up for so long.
Yep.
People are going to look at you like you're the problem.
Exactly. And you're going to feel.
The average Joe six-pack is going to look at you and go, well, they're saying that you're the problem, and you're acting like the problem now.
Yeah, they actually. Well, and this is the thing, is that it's already been implemented, and now they're saying, they're going to sit back and let you destroy yourself in the eyes of everybody else. Because an atheist, and let's look at this, they have completely, Christians think that most of the rest of the world is Christian, and they believe that, people think like them, and they don't understand that we now live in a world in which Christian values are not the norm. They are not. They're actually considered abnormal in some regard. You're in the Bible Belt. I know where you're at, but even down there, I've seen. There's a fine line. Jimmy Buffett once said, there's a fine line between Saturday night and Sunday morning, and that line is becoming even more and more. Your Christian values, and when you espouse to be a Christian and you want to hold those values, you are actually considered abnormal in most. And I'm not saying that you're abnormal. Think about it. So when you go out there and you talk about, Christian things, people look at you funny.
Exactly.
And so the government now, what they do.
The subject is, hey, you know what? Every American, I don't care if you're a Christian, if you're Jewish, if you're a Muslim that fled the tyranny that you were living in to practice your religion the way you want to. If you're what they call a Celtic Christian, which are from the Middle East, which are being slaughtered right now, by the way.
Yep.
These people fled. A lot of people come to this country because they're fleeing tyranny.
Yes.
And everything's been set up on a plate now that we actually have someone that's been elected into power. Mind you, Adolf Hitler was elected as well.
Yep.
Mussolini was elected as well.
Yep.
Julius Caesar, before he became Caesar, was the great conqueror that when he marched into Rome with his army, he walked in with applause.
Yeah.
Freedom dies by the sound of clapping.
Yeah.
And if you approach everything in the basis of, what you're destroying is this. These are the rules you're supposed to follow, and you gave us a stack that's like 5 feet high, and you've got one sheet of paper. What's this 5 foot high?
Yeah.
And that's where people are diverting this, and they're using their, the Christian values and all this and that. You know what? People need to tone down a little bit. I'm not saying don't believe. Have faith in what you believe in, but don't let that be your limelight of pushing forward.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yep.
When you take that into consideration, now you're taking the argument away from the freaking Limas or libtards. You're taking that away from them.
Yeah.
Now they can't use that as an argument. They can't get to people emotionally.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like I said, when I'm on the air here and stuff, I make no bones of what I believe in, because I know I'm amongst friends and fellow Christian, friends and like-minded individuals, and I agree with you. I don't care who you date. I don't care what you do, and I can care less. It's when you're cramming it down my kids' throats when you should be teaching them what I send them to school to learn, which is math, sciences, reading, writing, and arithmetic, social behaviors and stuff like that. They can get that in their secondary education, or I'll teach them, or whatever. I send my kids to
11-year-olds that anal sex is okay and it's a good thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. I don't send my
as a natural course, but teach them in a mannerism that these are all the diseases you can get if you interact in this.
Yeah. Well, exactly.
And people actually learn that, people from the 1920s, they were all, guts, glamour, drink it up, and let's go screw.
Yeah.
How many of those people
died of syphilis?
Yeah,
died of venereal. I mean, let's talk about
you cannot get rid of.
Yeah, let's talk about the prophylactic. You were in the military, you know about the prophylactic centers and all of that, and
If somebody's seen the actual video that they show you when somebody contracts black syphilis, which is prevalent in Korea, by the way.
Yeah.
You can't come back to the United States.
Yeah.
Wow. So why don't they teach kids about this stuff? This is what happens to the human body. And you know what? During those kids are going to go home like, hey, Mom, Dad, I learned if you have sex, you can die.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's that fun.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make a choice for myself. If I want to do those things, I know the dangers.
Yeah.
As well as it may make them think twice, like, hey, you know what, that girl's great and all, but I heard she slept with Billy, Tommy, and Jody.
Yeah.
And now I'm sleeping with all three of those guys, as well as her.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, that's not, like I said, that's what you do in your secondary education, more power to you and stuff. Yeah. That's just not, like I said, I don't send my kids to go to school to learn, they're there to learn about math. They're there to learn about science. Every moment that they're sitting there teaching them about all this other stuff, that's an hour, that's 2 hours, that's a week that they need to be teaching them about math. When our math scores are at the top of the world and all of our science scores are then okay, now we'll get into the social kind of topics. But until then,
the thing about it is they can go into that, the whole sexual part of it, because it's part of health. It's part of anatomy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you teach it in the mannerism that it's meant to be taught.
Well, exactly.
These are diseases. This is what's going on. Hey, but you know what? You can die of influenza, better known as the flu. You can die from this. You can die from that. So kids understand, hey, you know what? Washing my hands is a good thing. Not sleeping around is a good thing.
Yes.
And doing these other things might benefit me.
But think about
the right type of foods, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, think about though when you took health though. Well, how old were you when you took health?
That was 15, 16.
Yeah, you were in high school. You were in high school. You weren't in elementary school. I mean, I see my daughter brought home a book from her school She's in elementary school. She's not in middle school yet. She's still in elementary school. This now, granted, the pictures were drawn in cartoons. These were cartoons. The pictures were, if they were real pictures, were definitely, in my opinion, pornographic. They were
okay. They were actual anatomy pictures.
These were not scientific pictures. These were cartoon pictures depicting sexual acts, depicting showing detail of genitalia, and it's okay to take a mirror. I mean, I don't want to be gross, but and I was a mirror, teaching my daughter that it's okay to masturbate. I'll just be blunt and we'll just say it, to masturbate. And I feel that at a elementary school level, that is inappropriate. That is completely inappropriate.
When you get into high school, 14, 15, when all those crazy changes are going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I could see girls getting pulled aside in junior high.
Yes.
To be explained that you're going to, start your monthly cycles and, for health class, but then actually having scientific drawings of what a penis looks like.
Yeah, these weren't science. These were cartoon. These were written. No. These were, and I saw, and I was just, I was appalled. But what do you can complain, you can jump up and down. I know a lot of people say, well, you can homeschool and do all of that.
Okay, so you're going to have to follow the same criteria.
Yeah, you're still going to have to meet the requirements, and then, there's challenges there. All I'm saying is that I don't send my kids to learn to school. They're there to learn about math. They're there to learn about science. They're there to learn about English. They're there to learn about history. They're there to learn about, those things. They're not there to learn about how to masturbate. I'm sorry. It's exactly. Just, I have a hard time with that. Like I said, if you take those pictures and you put, even though they're cartoons at one time were outlawed in this country as well. If you take those cartoons and they were actual real people, you would be arrested for pornography, child pornography. Because these weren't adults; these were kids in these pictures, in these books, and you would be arrested for the fact that it was cartoons. I guess I don't know. It's just disgusting. It's vile to me, and that's the issue that I have. Like I said, I don't care who you sleep with. I don't care what you do. If you're deviant in your own house, if that's what you're into, that's your thing. But when you bring it out into the public, I have an issue.
Basically, what you're saying is this: is that when what you do in your own home is acceptable.
Yeah,
that's your home.
Yes.
Now, if you're breaking the law inside your home and you get caught doing it, more power to you. There's something called a noose and hook you up.
Yeah.
Or a chair or a chamber, which however the noose is cheapest. But when that infringes upon your neighbor, now you're infringing upon their rights.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, is that people aren't seeing that our rights are being infringed.
Yeah.
But it's being done at a pace that we'll let it go this time. Oh, we'll let it go this time. Oh, we'll let it go. We'll draw the line again. Can't cross this line.
Let me
5 more steps back. Draw the line again.
Let me.
They're not even stopping. They're already. We're still trying to catch up with them because they're 5 feet behind us.
Yeah. Let me expand. If you haven't had an opportunity to do it, don't do it with your kids, or don't do it. But go to a gay pride parade.
Mm-hmm.
I actually when I lived in Chicago, it was funny. We lived in a building called the Gay 90 building. You were either gay or 90. Don't ask me. Don't ask me which one. But they called it the Gay 90. It was right there in Wrigleyville, right there, right outside of Boys Town. And I remember it was hilarious. When I was getting married, my whole family, we're all from Tennessee, so they were all up. They were in the building. The same weekend that I was getting married was the Gay Pride Parade in Chicago. So we're in the building. I'm there with my father. I'm there with my mother. I'm there with friends of the family, good Southern Bible Belt Christians. we get in the elevator, and there's a guy that gets in the elevator. He's got a dog collar on, black chaps with his ass hanging out with a G-string. And so you can imagine, and, I'm kind of, I don't know, I'm just kind of, nebulous to it. I care less at that point. At first, it was kind of like, what the hell? But I lived in Chicago long enough where I just don't pay attention. But it was so funny. So the hilarious, you just had to say stuff. I mean, at that point, it was like, my friends were like, oh my God. My family members were like, and then it was, then the conversation started like, you like being dragged around by a dog collar? Don't you have any respect for yourself? You freaking, and of course, we're being insensitive because, they have a right to be led, and, if they want to be led around by a dog collar, I guess that's their perfect right. But the fact that when their ass cheeks are hanging out, and this is in public, this is not in private. You're no longer in your home. You are out in public walking. And that's, like I said, if you want to, and that's the problem I have with the gay community, is that, like I said, I don't care if you're in a loving relationship with someone, more power to you. But when you have a parade and the expectation is that it's perfectly okay to be pornographic, and to have everything hanging out. I've been to a gay pride parade where in normal circumstances, if you walked down the street with your junk hanging out, you would get beat down by the Chicago PD. During Gay Pride Week, during the parade and stuff, it's perfectly okay, and actually they protect you. So it's just, and that's the issue. That, we can go into a whole nother time. I don't know how we digress there, but getting back to the psychological warfare. I mean, that's, I believe, I subscribe to your notion that they're turning it up, they're backing it down, they're turning it back up, and it's a slow kill. And I think that that's what this administration, this president was put in there to do, was to slow kill us.
Right, but see, the only problem is that he's become drunk on his own power.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's realized it. I mean,
what they've done is they put somebody in there that they could influence, say, hey, this is what you're going to do, how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
Because inevitably Congress runs the presidency, supposedly.
Well, the New World Order runs the presidency. But you're absolutely correct. Yeah. I mean, I'm waiting for him to drag race with Justin Bieber. I mean, he could do whatever else he wants to do. I'm just waiting for it. I mean, you're absolutely correct. He knows he can get away with it. He knows he can absolutely. He knows he can get away with it. When he comes out and tells the American people, I don't care about your Constitution. I have a pen and a phone, and I will do whatever I want to do. I mean, and no one. You had a few of us who were complaining, but the majority of the American people kind of went, oh, whatever. And so naturally, he did. He went and, just this week, he took, the Obamacare law, and he, once again, changed the law.
You know who else did that?
Yeah. What's that?
Adolf Hitler.
Well, Hitler, oh, yeah. Hitler did it, Stalin did it, Lenin did it.
He became the Supreme Chancellor. He was the Chancellor. He was elected.
Yeah.
He did the same exact thing, almost verbatim.
I know. Well, that's...
Now, history never repeats itself. Yeah. It mirrors itself.
It does. And that's the thing, and that's why I'm so adamant against the Obamacare law, because if you look at the way the law is written and you look at the way that it's designed, it is very similar to the health laws that were written, under Hitler, President Hitler. Mm-hmm. And it was. And the way that they implemented it was the exact same way. I mean, we're now seeing children being denied medical care because their treatments aren't deemed life-sustaining. It had nothing to do with quality of life. Healthcare used to be all about quality of life. Now it's is it a sustaining treatment? And my attitude is if I'm a parent and my child is dying, if you can give me one more hour with them, I don't care what it costs and what it takes. Let's have it. And of course, the government's going to say, well, that's not fair to everybody else. But
see, this is the funny thing about that is that the Hippocratic Oath says, I will do no harm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, I'm not attacking doctors. I'm just saying, hey, this is your oath that you took to do no harm.
Well,
to treat, you know?
Well, they
so
do.
When the drug companies, they're producing at 71% capacity right now.
Yep.
So people can't get their drugs.
Yep.
They need to sustain life.
Yes. Yes.
Well, unfortunately, you know, dying is part of the human process.
Yeah, we all die.
Mind you. Yeah, we all die, you know, and prolonging it sometimes is...
Yeah.
It seems like a good thing, but sometimes it's a bad thing. It depends on the variance of what's wrong with somebody.
Yeah.
You know, a child is a child, and every moment counts because they might find the cure for it, whatever's ailing them.
Yes.
If they had enough, if that family had enough money.
Yes.
You know, that goes into a whole other weird theology as well. But the thing about it is that, well, why are the drug companies, why have they slapped back almost 30%? They're at 29%, you know, they're taking 29% of production away.
Well, there's no revenue.
What? No, there's no revenue. There's no money.
Last night, you know, it was funny because last night on C-SPAN, because, you know, after I do the show, I stay up for another 2 or 3 hours and watch C-SPAN. And they actually had the FDA, and they were talking about the drug shortages, and they talked about how they had 46 and as high as 212 drug. They actually had testimony last night about the FDA and the drug shortages, and they talked about how they're implementing systems, and they actually said that the vast majority of shortages are caused by 3 things. Number one, lack of manufacturing because of revenues. There's just not enough revenue anymore to manufacture the drugs. Number 2, the equipment that they're finding, you know, a lot of this equipment that manufactures these drugs are wearing out, and there's, you know, particulate matter inside these pills. And then it said number 3 is lack of supplies to actually manufacture. So the supply chain has been disrupted, and you know, for whatever reason. And of course you can deduce, because you got to remember, you have a society, you know, you got billions of people in the Asian society. As their quality of life or quality, you know, increases, their demand for things also increase. So when you have other competing factors now for the same amount of resources, before, when they were still in third world nation status, you know, when someone in China got sick, they just died, right? Well, now, because, you know, their economy's going, and in Asia, their economy, you know, all Asia Rim is going. So now they're competing for the same resources that were readily available to us. Now, the other thing too is that China basically has a stranglehold on all of the what they call precious minerals. And a lot of those minerals and a lot of those items are used in manufacturing these higher end manufacturing processes as well. So it was interesting. It was a 2-hour hearing on the FDA last night, and I was listening to it, and it was very intriguing.
If you notice what you said, they have the market on the precious minerals. They have this. They have that.
Oh yeah,
our dollar's declining.
Oh yeah.
Well, why? What is the biggest thing that we can produce here in the United States? Well, coal, steel.
Miley Cyrus.
There's a couple other commodities, but you know what? We're going to shut all the factories down, send everything overseas.
We've become our economic model, and it actually, you know, does this. So, you know, when you look at sophisticated cultures and stuff, what typically happens is that you start moving out of the industrial manufacturing and start moving into the service related industries. Our economy is based on service related now. We don't make anything in this country anymore. I mean, we do, but you know, nowhere near the
what we used to.
Oh, nowhere near.
I mean, if you look at during World War II, they were sending out what were they? They're the cargo ships, the Marine, whatever, I forget what they are, the Fleet Marines or whatever they're called.
Oh,
those ships that those guys are on, they said it would take them 2 years to build them. They were pumping one out every 6 days.
Yeah. You mean the Merchant Marines?
The Merchant Marines, yes.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Well, if we had the capability of doing that 60 years ago, well, why can't we do that today?
Yeah.
The cost would be too much. Well, if they start reopening some factories, you know, and get your six-pack off the couch instead of collecting a check, and telling them going to work is a good thing instead of telling people it's okay, you can go home and spend more time with your family.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the problem with that's the problem with Obamacare. Now, there's no motivation for people to go to work because you get penalized for going to work.
Exactly. But we're in a fiat currency system. Yes, the United States started on a fiat currency, system, folks. Money wasn't backed by anything. The thing about fiat currency systems is this: you have to stop the production of money to make money worth something.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, because money's value is based is based on scarcity, just like any other commodity. And the more money there is, the less scarce it is, thus the less value it has.
Right.
It's
so when everything comes into play, the past 70 years, our grandparents fought a great war. Well, at least I'm old enough that my grandparents fought in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
My great grandparents fought in World War I.
Mm-hmm.
Hell, my great whatever he is, uncle fought in the Revolutionary War. Yes, my family's been here that long.
Wow.
I take a little bit of pride on what I vowed to defend because it's a family heritage.
Yeah.
But people have forgotten that there's a value in who you are.
Yeah.
All these people, stand up saying, "Oh, well, my people were slaves." You know what? 10 to 1 they weren't. Or 10, or whatever tribe that you're associated with back in Africa where you came from may have actually been selling the people from down the road to the Dutch.
Oh, yeah.
Then were slaves. Not every black person was a slave. They cannot trace their lineage back like that.
Yeah.
But they're made to believe they can. Why? Because if you separate them from us, everyone forgets about the yeoman farmers, right after the Civil War, big old thing that went on.
Yeah.
The Freemen and the Yeoman Farmers. Good book, read it.
Yeah.
You learn that there was no difference between that guy with Coon Gooding Jr. and I forget his name, where he's the first Marine diver. The reason why the guy that he started out, disliking him just because of the color of his skin, but found out, what? His daddy did the same exact thing that his daddy did.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's the big deal? We're all Americans. Period. Because the only color that I saw for, almost 20 years of my life was green. It doesn't matter, folks. When it comes down to religion, it doesn't matter. When it comes down to skin color, it does not matter.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to get off the bandwagon. They're destroying our country a piece at a time, and what are we doing? We're still fighting amongst each other.
Yep.
Because, it's like, if you think about this terminology, 9/11 happened. Whatever everyone believes is the cause of that doesn't really matter at this point. We've seen a massive influx. It didn't matter who you were. When you went up and down the city street, what did you see? An American flag.
You saw American flag everywhere you went.
Exactly. Well, you know what? People should be putting that flag back outside their home. Maybe, how about the first battle flags?
Yeah.
The cut-up snake.
Yeah.
Or, the gas and whatever it's called, the rattlesnake, don't tread on me.
Yep, the Gaston flag. Yep.
Yeah, thank you. If people started doing what they need to do and start saying, hey, you know what, Mayor, you're screwing up.
Well, yeah.
Why are you taking this from the governor?
Well,
or county director, why are you doing this?
Yeah. I mean, it's by design, because as long as we're fighting amongst each other, we're not looking at the real problem. You're absolutely correct. We're not looking at the cause of the real issue here. And the cause of the real issue is the lack of leadership on the Hill, lack of morality on the Hill, the lack of, and I'm not saying Christian values, just values in general and everything on the Hill. And as long as we're fighting and we're worrying about, our skaters, or whatever in the Olympics, as long as we're, Miley Cyrus and what she's doing, or Justin Bieber and what he's doing, or whatever, as long as we're doing that, then the government gets a free pass. Because, see, as we were watching all of that, the government basically suspended the debt ceiling. A lot of Americans don't know that. The President of the United States basically, once again, treaded all over the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah, he's using his toilet paper.
Yeah, I mean, but we're worried about gay rights and like I said, we're worried about who's going to win the Super Bowl. It was a Super Bowl 2 weeks ago. Now it's gay rights at the Olympics. Now it's we completely, and that's all by design. Look, I'm a firm believer that is all by design. That is all by design.
You know, if it's Russia's policy that they're not going to push anything gay because it may affect the children,
I don't care.
that is their God-given right.
That's if you don't.
Country.
I'm actually kind of for it, but that's a whole other topic for another day and stuff, my friend.
Exactly, but it's their right because it's their country. That's the way they see fit to run.
Yeah, if you don't like it, then immigrate there and change the law. I guess I don't know.
Immigrate.
But
here we've got a massive flood of people just jumping. Prime example: we've held the 38th parallel now for 60 years.
Yeah.
A fleet can't get across it. Mm-hmm. Do you mean to tell me that we can't defend our own border?
Oh, no. Come on.
We all know better. But why does enough people haven't stood up and said, you know what? This is wrong. What you people have done are wrong.
Yeah. It's kabuki theater.
You are going to be held accountable for being a schmoo.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm
you know what? It's simple as that. You know, we've got Kurt O'Reilly trying to do a great thing, march on Washington. Well, you know what?
Yeah.
March into Washington. It's a constitutional free zone, and it's been upheld by judges.
Yeah.
Have fun. I'm not saying don't do it. Be mindful.
Well, my whole thing. I'm not saying don't do it because you do what people want to do, but I'm thinking my thing is that we need to start acting more locally. The energy that they're going to expel on the April Spring or the American Spring, whatever they're doing, if you took half of that energy and you applied it at your local level, I think you'd be more effective. I'm a firm believer. I'm trying to put together a program right now on a day, like a couple days before the election. Every Patriot goes to their bank and they withdraw their money. Just take their money out of the bank account and watch the financial system come to a screeching halt. And you're actually going to see, kind of like down there, the South got bad weather. You saw the shelves. You saw people fighting over food. You started to see that. Well, when 3% of the American people take their money out of the bank and you start seeing the banks saying, look, we can't give you your money, you're going to see how fragile our economic system truly is. And then maybe that will wake you up. Or maybe that will wake up the rest of America.
Hey, folks, it's time to file your taxes.
Yeah.
File for an extension.
Yeah.
Because if 50% of the United States files for an extension, hey, guess what? The government shuts down completely.
Yeah.
They have no money. They can't print money. They can't do shit. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
But that's the simple reality of it. There are ways we can do this without having to draw blood, but you know what? Inevitably, that's what they want. They want one of those instances of John Brown. People that don't know about John Brown, do a little bit of research. I'll give you a hint. It's right before the Civil War.
Yep. No, you're right. They want to push the issue, and they're waiting for one of us to snap, but I think we need to be smart. But however, like a good soldier, you pray for peace, but you plan for war, and you need to be preparing
for war. And when the time comes, you go.
Yeah, you'll know. I mean, you'll know. So. Well, my friend, talking about soldiers, we have pretty much chewed up a good hour. So
I do apologize for that.
No, don't apologize.
It's time for the people to stand up, wake up, and say something. I don't care if you're 70 years old. Tell a 16-year-old the truth.
Yeah.
He may not believe you at first, but give him the true evidence. Yeah. Don't feed him conspiracy theory. Don't do all these crazy things. Feed him facts.
Yeah.
Feed people facts. That's what will open up their eyes.
Yeah.
Don't try to, thump your Bible and hit them in the head with it. It's not going to do anything but make them resent you.
Yeah.
Use facts and keep your moral beliefs about you.
Yeah.
I'm out of here from Tennessee.
Thanks, Sean, my friend. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being a part of the conversation tonight. Sean from Tennessee, and he's absolutely correct. One of the things when, we talk about religion and everything, there's a great part, and I have to pull it out of the Bible. I'm not a huge Bible thumper. I mean, I know where a lot of my my abilities come from. There's no reason. I mean, there's no way in Sam Heck that I can look at my life and my training and everything and look at where I'm at today and what I'm doing right now and think that this is not divine in one way or another, that this message is not being put together and the roads and the inroads and the opportunities and all that have been, laid out before me. Obviously, someone's driving this. I don't know who. But, well, I like to know who, but, someone's driving it. But I'm not one to really beat people up about religion. And the reason being is I remember there was a parallel, and I got to find it. And it has to do with the splitting of the Christian religion and the Muslim. And I remember, Abraham was, about Sarah, basically, what are you going to do, God? And God basically told him, don't worry about it. It ain't none of your business. I'll build a nation upon themselves. You don't worry about it. You do what you're supposed to be doing and let me do what I'm supposed to be doing. And, that's so true. And sometimes us as Christians, and so we forget about that. The plan and the goals, if you truly are a Christian, you got to have the belief system. And this is the belief system. This is for me. And I'm just going to lay it out there. I'm going to live my life the way that I think I'm supposed to live my life, right? The actions in which I do are what are important to me. How you live your life like God told Abraham, ain't none of your business. And that's what God is, and that's the way I live my life. What you believe in, what religion you subscribe to, whatever you want to do. If it's, praying to Jesus Christ as your Savior, if it's, voodoo and chickens, whatever you're compelled, because it ain't none of my business. I got enough stuff here, and when I say here, I'm saying within myself, that I need to get right before I get critical about you. That's and that's where I stand on that. And I think I appreciate Sean for bringing that out, and I think we need to make that clear. So it's kind of like my profession of faith, my profession of patriotism. I think you guys understand where I'm coming from. And that's why, the whole deal about, your religious beliefs, and so that's your stuff, God bless you, or Muhammad bless you, Allah, whatever you want, that's your stuff. What is in front of us now is the fact that this government is being controlled by the puppet masters, and by the 96 individuals who control 98% of the world's wealth. That's the fact. And what it is that the government now has deployed sophisticated methods of psychological warfare, media manipulation, which all falls hand in hand with each other, to corral and to cattle us. Right? That's the fight that we're talking about here. All this other stuff is ancillary. It's all about distractions. Think about just tonight, how long we talked about gay rights. Now, there is a commonality in that, though. We're talking about, these educations where the New World Order knows in order to weaken this country, they have to destroy the family values. How do they destroy the family values? Well, they take your children from you. They re-educate them in the education centers called our public school systems. And they pollute their minds with media. And if you, and I know you got parents that say, well, I'm not going to let my kids watch TV. The reality of it is all you're doing when you do that is because, how do you say this? You're dealing with individuals who have been doing this for hundreds of years. And a lot of these programs have come out of the concentration camps of Nazi Germany. The psychological welfare. They know that when you tell your child that they can't do that, that's going to force them to do it even more. And that's going to drive them to that media. And then once, and the thing is that if you want, I'm going to give you a secret here. I'm going to give you a little insight on psychological warfare. when they can arouse an emotional response from you. When you open up and you show that emotion, you are malleable. That's why the military breaks you. And that's why they rebuild you. It's hundreds of years of research. And it's becoming even more sophisticated. So, when it was funny when Joe, yesterday, we were talking on the show, he said, I bet you were hopping mad. No, I wasn't, because one of the things that I've learned by doing this is a way of controlling my emotions better. Because, like I said, when you open those emotions up, you are opening a portal right into the heart of your mind. And I know a lot of you guys are, this is crazy, but it's not, because that's what they do. That's how they break you. They evoke an emotion. Once they get that emotional response from you, then they program you. And they do it many different ways. But it's all about getting you to show your emotions, because once you open up those emotions, think of it like a package. Once you open that up and you expose those neurons, then they can stimulate those. And they stimulate those with, reprogramming. So when you're dealing with your kids, the last thing you want to do is get into an emotional argument with them. Keep it cool. That's how you get into I'm just telling you, sharing with you some things that as you progress and you learn, you learn these things. And these aren't things that I've concluded to. These are things that I've studied and I've been taught. And so the whole thing is that, keep your emotions. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to enrage you. That was one of the things I was watching, and I'm not going to criticize another host on another show, but I'll flat out say, Alex Jones. I listen to Alex. And the thing is he lost the battle. And let me tell you why. When he was on Pierce Morgan, remember that? That's one of the things that motivated me to start this show up, to be a little bit more level-headed. Present the facts, but be more level-headed. And I understand his rage, because he has seen it for 15 years now. Fought it. He's under attack. I'm not going to criticize him in that regard, because I'm not in the man's shoes. I'm not walking the same walk. I don't know what he's been. I don't know the threats that have been done to his family. I know they're out there, because I know the threats that I've gotten. But when he went on Pierce Morgan and he got into an emotional argument, they won. Think about what they did. When you get emotional, you become incoherent. You become malleable, and then they can, and look, you're dealing with experts. Media today are professionals at manipulation. Media is no longer the days of the great Walter Cronkite or whoever sitting up there reading you the news. It is about invoking emotional response. Your news, I don't know if you guys know, I'm going to give you some insight here, because, like I said, I've studied this stuff. Doing this show, learning and studying. News is formulated, the way the news media is formulated, the way that the stories throughout a 30-minute clip, it is formulated to invoke an emotional response from you. Yes. Because they know certain responses retain viewers longer. They know that the average attention span of most modern adults, believe it or not, is 3 minutes. 3 to 5 minutes. They know that. It's only amazing, how long is most advertisements? Think about that. You're dealing with very smart people here. They're much smarter than you and I. But I can tell you this, if you want to protect yourself from them, don't get emotional. Don't make it an emotional fight. Keep it level. Keep it level. Don't win. Because like any good vaccination against a disease, the vaccination against this disease of media manipulation is keeping your emotions in check. Don't let them invoke you. Don't do it. You're going to find that if you can do that, you're going to be able to see through a lot of the manipulations. When you watch commercials, ask yourself, what's the emotional response that they're trying to sell me here? What emotional response are they trying to use to unlock the protections of my brain? And these are natural protections that your brain invokes. What are they trying to unlock? Is it love? Is it envy? Is it greed? Is it sex? Is it, desperation? Is it, what is it? So this is your exercise. When you watch commercials, look at it that way. Ask yourself, what is the emotional response that they are trying to invoke from me with this commercial? And when you see that emotional response, when you understand what they're doing, then you're going to see what they're... Now ask yourself, now that they've opened me up to this emotional response, what are they trying to reprogram me? What are they doing? What are they trying to put back into my head? Ask yourself that. Start out with commercials. Just start out with commercials. If you want to do the exercise, take a piece of paper and just write it down. Keep track of it. Keep a book, a diary. And when you start looking at things like that and you start looking at it that way, you will become truly enlightened. And then once you're able to master it on the commercials, now look at TV shows. Look at the TV shows that you watch. Look at the posters. Look at the banners. Look at all the subliminal messaging that goes on. Now, like I said earlier, it is proven that the refresh rate on most computers now, not TVs, TVs are a lot higher now, have been used to stimulate and to dull people. If I took you and put you in front of an LED light that was flickering at 60 megahertz or 66 megahertz, I could put you to sleep. So, enough of that, though. Let's talk about an emotional. You want to get an emotional response about me. This is a topic that's always going to be a topic that I have a hard issue with, a hard time with. And that's 22. That's 22 soldiers every day that commit suicide in this country. We're going to end the show on this. We begin the show recognizing, doing the Pledge of Allegiance, taking the oath every day. And then we end the show remembering those who have paid the ultimate price. And we'll honor the fallen here in a few minutes. But before we do that, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you about this disease of negligence, this disease of complacency when it comes to our American men and women, the men and women that put on this country's uniform. 22 soldiers every day commit suicide in this country. That's 22 too many. On average, it takes 354 days for a soldier to get the benefits that they've earned, that they're entitled to because of the contract that they signed when they signed up and put on this nation's uniform. 354 days. That is an appalling number. I want you to reach out to your congressmen, to your local politicians, to your DAV, whoever you got to reach out to and tell them no more. Tell them that that's unacceptable. We got to do something. What are these politicians doing to take care of the men and women that put on this nation's uniform? And, The reality of it is they even cutting their benefits by 20% even over a period of time on retirement. We need to fight for our soldiers. They fought for us. It's only fair. So I ask you, please reach out to your congressmen, to your politicians. Let them know that this is unacceptable and no more. We can't have it anymore. The other thing that I ask is that if you see a soldier, a man and woman in uniform, if you know they're in the military, kind of know who they are. They have a certain swagger about themselves. Walk up to them, shake their hand, look them squarely in the eye, shake their hand, and thank them for the service. Thank them for everything that they do for this nation, for you, for your family. Even though you believe or don't believe in the wars or the conflicts that they're engaged in, you must remember that they are fathers, husbands, wives, mothers, brothers, and sisters. And there is no greater honor that you can pay to a soldier than by letting them know that you appreciate the sacrifices that they and that themselves and their family have made for us. They don't do it for the pay. They do it because they believe and they've answered that higher calling. So before we end the night, I just want to say God bless our American soldiers, all active, retired. And also, at this time, I want to honor the fallen. Army Private, First Class Joshua A. Gray, February 10th, 2014.
Yourself in there, turn your back on everything you know right now. With the whole world to lose, you got no dinner with the family, you got no home, no luxury car. Just a welcome to the battlefield, 'cause it's time to go to war. Because they do it for me and they do it for you. In the red, white, and blue. Amen to the ones on the battlefield. Amen to those who just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that